Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February meeting of the Plan Commission. I will now call the meeting to order. Jackie, would you call the roll for us?
Yes. Tron Enright Randolph.
Here.
Scott Ferris.
Here. Sorry.
And just a quick announcement on the mics. I think that if too many of the mics are on at once, it may cause some echo. So if you can, just when you're not speaking, try to turn the mic off. And that's the little person with the speech symbol on there. Jeffrey Morris.
Here.
Cheryl Munson.
Here.
Edward Ullman.
Here.
Dee Owens. Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Julie Thomas.
Here.
Dee Owens.
I'm here. Thank you.
And then Chris Cockrum. Okay, so we have 8 in-person Plan Commission members, and then our city representative attending. So we do have an in-person quorum.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Next, would you introduce the evidence for tonight for us?
I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Comprehensive Plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Plan Commission Rules of Procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Jackie. Do we have a motion to approve the evidence introduced?
Motion. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the introduction of evidence. Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Aye.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-0.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda as presented. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the agenda. Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Aye.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. We have no minutes to approve tonight, so we'll
Jackie?
move straight into administrative
You didn't
business.
ask for my vote.
I apologize. Scott
Sorry.
Ferris.
Yes.
Thank you. 8-0.
That happens
you.
when you don't have a name tag.
Okay, moving into administrative business, we've got the 2024 meeting calendar revisions. Jackie?
Yes, so we had a discussion at the Plan Commission Administrative meeting, and I will go ahead and share the calendar, or Daniel, if you could pull that up for me on the, where do you want me to pull it up? I can share it.
I don't think it's in the.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, so we have not changed any of the meeting dates, but what we have proposed for you all today is some formatting changes. You'll notice that soon after the filing deadline column, we've changed the meeting order to be from left to right in sequential order. So what we're proposing is for March, April, and May to go ahead and cancel the Plan Review Committee to see if there could be some time to appoint citizen members. There's some vacancies on that Plan Review Committee for citizen members, and so we'd like to give an opportunity to see if anyone does want to reach out to the Commissioner's office and sign up to be on the Plan Review Committee. They would meet on the second Thursday of the month at 5:30 p.m. And their goal is to review rezones and plan unit developments that are in line with the comprehensive plan, or to discuss the comprehensive plan. So we've given that time allotment of canceled meetings to see if we can appoint any citizen members. And then we've also proposed that in the interim, while we do not have Plan Review Committee, that part of the Plan Commission administrative meetings may be allow some time to just discuss briefly those rezones and outline plans so that they still have an opportunity to be heard before the regular session of the Plan Commission. So that is the summary of the changes, and we will be bringing this back to your attention come late May, early June to bring back the discussion of whether we were able to appoint any citizens to the Plan Review Committee and whether this committee is still pertinent to the operations of the Plan Commission and whether we need that moving forward. I can take any questions.
Any questions for Jackie?
I guess, how do we advertise those citizen appointee roles?
During the commissioners meeting, there is appointments made at the end of the meeting, and then also a discussion of any vacant committees, and they make an announcement during those meetings, I know. But otherwise, I don't know if Cheryl also can speak to that.
I'm not going to speak about announcements, but I'd like to do a promotion to citizen members to serve on this committee. I did for 7 years before I ran for county council. And it really prepared me for contributing to county government, I believe. So it's a great committee. You get to learn a lot, and you can bring your own thoughts and be heard. It's very important to have citizen participation. So I'm just plugging service on this committee. And the application is online.
Thank you. Mr. Pittsford?
Yeah, I would echo everything Cheryl said, and I'd also add that, this almost should be advertised, but I also think it should be very clear to the public listening tonight. This is the only citizen participation board that you can be appointed to other than the Plan Commission itself. So people who have an interest in land use planning in the county that would like to get more involved, this is the first step. And there is consideration of doing away with the committee basically because there's been a lack of citizen participation. I find it extremely difficult to believe that there's a lack of citizen interest in land use planning in Monroe County when we're currently going through our CDO process. So those of you who may be sleeping on this at home, this is your wake-up call.
So, Mr. President, I would like to add another suggestion, and that is that each of our meetings, we talk about the need for citizen participation on this committee. And where to find the application is actually on the county's website. Thank you.
And just one, thank you so much. I'm so happy I asked that question because Cheryl Munson did, Councilwoman Cheryl Munson did an amazing job at advocating for folks to be involved. And at our administrative meeting, Jerry made the point that, the reason we have this is because of the citizens appointee, and without them, I find it interesting if we would want to keep this. So I really hope that folks do gain interest. But to my question, these are appointed roles by the Plan Commission, correct?
By the commissioner.
The commissioners.
The commissioners appoint the
Yes.
citizen appointees to that as well?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Okay, so I guess it'd be interesting if we could promote that a bit more to actually get some interest so we can keep this, because I absolutely think it would be a great benefit to hear what the citizens' thoughts are through this plan review committee.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Chris.
So just to be clear, if somebody does have an interest, which I love this conversation, they need to go to the city website and actually apply.
No,
Or the county, I'm sorry, the county website. Yeah.
Yes, I can find the county website. So it's www.co.monroe.in.us. And then if you go to the How Do I tab on the right-hand side and find a document, you should also be able to find it under the Document Center. However, you can also hover over How Do I, find a form, and there's a board and commission application. So you should be able to find that easily on the website using this web page. And then if you scroll down, you will find a link for Plan Review Committee and be able to apply directly online. And it's a 1-year term appointment.
Thank you, Jackie. Go ahead, Edward.
I feel like by the time this conversation's over, we're going to be out in meeting time. But if I may add one thing about the citizen appointee being probably the newest member, well, I guess newest member of the planning, it might be ominous understanding land use and terms and concepts and stuff. And working from the extension side of things, we have a lot of resources to help a member of the public better understand and learn the planning world. So if you're hesitant to think of applying to one of these positions that we've been discussing, please feel free to reach out to the county extension office, and we will help you learn more about these concepts before you come and join our team.
So it's easy, a Boilermaker can do it.
Mr. Ferris, I'll skip over that comment. Yeah, go ahead.
As the newest board member, I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Jackie? If not, Jackie, thanks for sharing the revisions to the calendar.
And then I believe it would take a vote to actually adopt the new 2024 calendar. So if you wouldn't mind moving to
Sure.
make a vote. Thank you.
Sure. Do we have a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
2024 calendar.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the calendar. A vote in favor is to approve the changes to the 2024 calendar as presented in the packet. Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 8-0.
Thank you, Jackie. Moving into unfinished business tonight, I see that we have several members of the public here, so I'll give a brief overview about how this works. For each petition, the planning staff will present the petition, and then we will give the petitioner or petitioner's representative 15 minutes to come and speak about the petition. And then after that, we will allow members of the public 3 minutes each to either speak for or against the petitions. So at a very high level, that's how it works. We'll then come back to the Plan Commission and discuss and then vote. So moving into the very first petition of the night, SPP-23-4, the Springwoods Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat, final hearing. Daniel?
Mr. President, I was wondering if you wanted just to speak about the one that's being continued, just in case people from the public came to that one. It was pretty well attended last time, and they might not know it's being continued.
Sure. Thank you, John, for mentioning that. So if you're here for the Trails at Robertson Farm PUD on Victor Pike, that has been continued by the petitioner. So that case will not be heard tonight. So if you're here for that one, stay tuned for a future meeting that one will come back to. So Daniel?
Thank you. So here's just a brief recap. This is to establish a 7-lot major subdivision at 4050 West Carmola Drive. This will be to create 6 single-family residential lots and 1 common area with no frontage on the road, which will be used for drainage. All proposed lots will meet the minimum requirements for subdividing land, and a will-serve letter for sewer has been obtained. Right-of-way permits have been applied for and are pending approval of this subdivision. And here's just a bit of a refresher for the background. It's zoned medium density residential and was recently rezoned back in 2021. Ordinance number 2021-32. Extra right-of-way was dedicated to accommodate sidewalk design, which otherwise would have extended out of the right-of-way. And a temporary right-of-way easement, which was a condition of approval for the original rezone, has been shown on the preliminary plat as well. There was a utility pole on the same side of West Carmola Drive as the proposed subdivision, but this has been determined to be in the right-of-way, thus no overhead utility waiver is required. And the preliminary plat is proposing removal of this utility pole in coordination with Duke Energy, who provides the electricity. So here are some updates from the preliminary hearing. At the preliminary hearing, there were concerns raised about the bioretention area being too close to the neighboring properties to the north. The petitioner has since updated the site plan to show the detention area has been shifted 10 feet to the south of its original proposed position. In addition, the updated site plan states that trees within 10 feet of the property line will be preserved. The only possible exception is going to be a tree in the northwest corner that the petition feels may not be able to remain and is shown as being removed on the new subdivision plan, page 2. The trees on the plans are 8 inches in diameter or larger, and again are shown on page 2 of the preliminary plat. Major subdivisions are also required to have sidewalks on both sides of the street. At the time of the preliminary hearing, there was no proposed sidewalk on the south side of Carmola Drive. This has since been amended and has been included in the updated site plan. Further right-of-way has been dedicated on lots 1, 2, 3 to make the right-of-way more uniform, or the perimeter or the southern property lines more uniform, more streamlined. Also, at the time of the preliminary hearing, the subdivision had no information regarding the species or size of proposed street trees. Page 3 of the updated plat contains the following notes about the street trees. 1, street trees are to be selected, that should be selected, not elected, I apologize, from Chapter 830, Table 30-5, and shall be approved by the Monroe County Planning Department prior to installation. 2, locations of street trees can vary to avoid utility conflicts, but must be behind the right-of-way line and within 5 feet of the right-of-way line. And 3, not more than 1 species of street tree shall total more than 20% of the total street trees planted on the site. And here's just a table showing the dimensions of the lot. I would like to make a correction here that was not reflected in the packet that was sent out. With this bioretention being shifted 10 feet down, lot 7 actually increased in size, and lots 1 through 6 actually decreased in size marginally, which is reflected on the screen right now. As well as the right-of-way being updated for lots 1 through 3 from 25 feet to 30 feet. I apologize for that error. And here's just a location and current zoning map of the area, the site conditions, as well as the comprehensive plan, some site photos. These are further site photos of the rear of the property near the northern property line that were taken, I believe, last month or December. And here is just the site plan that's been the newest updated site plan that was received on February 12th. This is a new page as well. It shows the landscaping within the bioretention area. And so staff recommends approval based on the finding that the proposed preliminary plat meets the subdivision control ordinance with the following conditions, some of which have been amended from the preliminary hearing to reflect the updated site plan. The first is add the note to the plat, all new utilities, including but not limited to gas, sewer, electric power, telephone, and CATV shall be located underground throughout the subdivision per chapter 856-41. Number 2, the petitioner adds street trees north of the bioretention along the entirety of the subdivision boundary, east to west, at a rate of 1 tree per 40 feet. Existing trees to be preserved north of the bioretention and shown on page 2 of the preliminary plat may count as 1 tree. And 3, the petition submit a construction schedule for the completion of the public improvements, including sidewalks, street trees, and bioretention, that shall not exceed 3 years from final platting. The bioretention must be approved by the MS4 coordinator before the first lot receives building permits. The bioretention must include an as-built for MS4 coordinator approval. In addition, the sidewalk on the south side of the Carmola Drive must also be installed prior to the issuance for the first building permit for the subdivision. The remaining improvements of sidewalk and street trees must be installed prior to certificate of occupancy for each individual lot. And here's just a rough drawing explaining condition number 2, the trees on the rear end of the property, north end of lot 7. The yellow trees are marked on page 2 as being removed. The orange trees mark plants that we believe will contribute to the 1 tree per 40 feet. Each blue line is representing 40 feet from east to west. And the blue dots are where we believe trees are needed in order to satisfy condition number 2 if it's approved. Yes.
Okay, do any members of the Plan Commission have questions for Daniel? Yep, Mr. Enright Randolph.
I have 2 questions. The first one, Daniel, if you want to address it, or Miss Jackie Nestor-Jelen. Would you kind of explain how this petition kind of meets all the compliances that is asked, and how it is kind of a by right development? Would you kind of expand on that a little bit? Daniel touched on it, but I think for the public's edification, it would be nice to explain that we have a very limited role in this proposed petition.
Sure. So the property was rezoned to medium density residential, which allows for 0.21 acre lot sizes. So if a person were to bring forward a subdivision such as this, meeting all of the conditions of subdivision approval, the Plan Commission is required by state law to approve that subdivision. It's considered by right. The conditions of approval that we've placed on the subdivision are also considered to be optional, with the exception of number 1. That's just a edit that we have to the plat. Numbers 2 and 3 are not technically requirements under the subdivision code.
Right. I feel like the petitioners might be amenable to that, so that's great. So my second question is, we are currently talking about assurance for compliance and maintenance of improvements amendment, chapter 858, and we haven't yet adopted this. Do you have any concerns? Because it looks like we're going to ask for a lot of infrastructure in this, and what, I guess, just to explain that at a high level, this is to kind of try to stay up to pace with inflation, and as those infrastructure costs go up, and if the developer doesn't develop it in a timely manner, that we're asking for additional funds to ensure that we can put those improvements in. And we haven't adopted that measure. I do think that we will be moving that forward. I don't want to speculate too much, but my question is, this is a smaller subdivision, but it has a lot of stormwater infrastructure. Do you think that, as our ordinance is currently, that we don't have too much of a issue here? Because my other question is, could we then table this and then address this potential amendment and then bring it back up to kind of make sure that we have that as part of our ordinances? So I'm kind of getting the cart a little ahead of the horse, but that's a concern of mine.
Sure. So I'll take your question in 2 parts. The first being that this has a lot of infrastructure associated with it. When we spoke with the petitioner's engineer, Ms. Katie Stein, she's here tonight representing the petitioner, they are interested in submitting a financial guarantee instead of putting in the improvements between the time of the preliminary plat and the final plat. This is a 6 residential lot subdivision, so in terms of scale, it's not as many improvements as you might see for a major subdivision of, say, 100 lots. So it's not as large of a financial guarantee that we're expecting. We did add the condition number 3 under the packet, which Daniel has presented, about timelines, and we're hoping that the petitioner is amenable to those sort of as a written commitment to put a time stamp on when they would be able to finish out some of those improvements so that we don't run into the issue of inflation. Part 2 of your question of continuing this, I don't believe we have the authority to continue this pending a text amendment so we'll have to hear it as it's presented.
Okay, I just wanted to have that conversation. Thank you. I will finally say that, you know, as much as the petitioners can commit to, I would really kind of make this probably an easier one to get behind and support.
Thank you, John. Any other questions for Daniel or Jackie? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to the petitioner now. If there's a petitioner or a petitioner's representative that would like to speak on behalf of this, you'll have 15 minutes.
Hi, I'm back. Good evening. Katie Steinsmith, Design Group, petitioner's representative and petitioner's survey and civil engineers. We have had, I guess, a lot of communication between planning and petitioner and whatnot in the last month. So as Daniel went through some of the changes that were made from discussions of last meeting to where we are today. I don't have much to add to Daniel's presentation. As the 3 conditions stand right now, we are agreeable to those. I would like to maybe add an amendment or something a little bit more with that second condition. We have a lot of trees that are being planted within our bioretention area that is required from the landscape requirements. So I would like consideration of those trees being counted towards that condition of the 1 foot for every 40 feet. If there are particular locations for those, I know we've already removed some of these locations based on some stormwater comments in vicinity of the under drains within that detention area. So if we need to move more, whatever, we can certainly do that. Other than that, I am here to answer any questions. I believe Greg Lauer may be online as well. That can also, he's legal counsel for Blackwell Contractors, may answer any questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Do any of the members of the Plan Commission have questions for Ms. Stein? Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
If there is any remonstrance from the public, you'll get 5 minutes to come back up and speak to that afterwards.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move to the public, oh, sorry, Edwin, I was wondering if planning wanted to kind of address her question.
Sure.
I think that Ms. Stein's recommendation of moving some of the bioretention plantings out further towards the northern property boundary is amenable. I think that that's a good idea. And we would work with her on that condition to make sure those plantings could count, because we do think that they do far exceed the tree requirement that we're asking for. It's just a matter of distribution and buffering.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. And it looks like the MS4 coordinator has her hand raised. Kelsey, was there something you'd like to say?
This is Kelsey Petonia. I just wanted to, I would support moving the trees away from the under drains. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey.
I don't know if this is a question for Jackie or maybe Kelsey, but how is the species selection made for the bioretention area, and who kind of dictates those?
We have a chapter in our zoning ordinance revolved around landscaping, and in that we have a list of native plants that are recommended not just for in general, but also by specific areas such as streetscape and bioretention plantings. We also accept cultivars, but those are limited to 50% of the total plantings per area, I believe.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move into the public comment portion. If there is anyone here, members of the public who would wish to speak in favor of this, please come up to the microphone and state your name and the county in which you reside. Oh, and I should add, please sign in on the sheet on the podium. Okay, thank you.
Oh, there we go. Okay, my name is Kathy Kessler. I live in Monroe County. I live in the subdivision, Glen Meadows subdivision, right behind this proposed property. First off, I want to thank the county's stormwater planning and highway departments for meeting with us to explain their recent findings. That helped a lot. I'd also like to thank whomever was responsible for clearing our streets after this last snow. Okay, secondly, while we're not crazy about this subdivision going in behind us, we understand that Blackwell Contractors owns the property and does have the right to put the subdivision in. But I do have a few requests, some which were touched on as far as like the trees. I understand that there's quite a bit of landscaping going on around the detention pond. And there was talk about, because there's so many there, that would count towards the number of trees that are being removed. Pretty much all the trees behind our property, we're behind lot 6 and part of 5, are being removed, which means we have no trees or little to no trees behind us. So what I am asking, we would like the 2-inch diameter trees from the county's list of acceptable trees every 40 feet along the back of that property. At least up until you get to the detention pond, which seems like there's quite a bit of vegetation and trees there. I would also like to request that Lot 7, that the detention pond be completed, the landscaping around that detention pond shown on page 29 of tonight's meeting packet be planted, and the trees that I just mentioned in my first request, be planted before any clearing is done in lots 1 through 6. And lastly, I would like Blackwell Contractors to keep up the maintenance, including mowing, of Lot 7 until the Springwoods Major subdivision is complete, their HOA is created, and the property owners of lots 1 through 6 take over the maintenance of Lot 7, so that we don't end up with like the last lot that he has in our subdivision, which has rebar on it, gravel. We would like for him to maintain it until the HOA is created and they can take that over. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this petition?
I'm Jamie Locke. I live in the addition next to her. Like she said, we don't mind that it's going in. We have no choice about it. He owns the property. But when he pays $150,000 for that and is going to divide it times 6, and he puts $400,000 to $500,000 on each house, it seems that there's plenty of money to run down to Able Nursery and buy a few trees for $100 a piece. I can't see why any of those trees that are needed for the infrastructure for that pond or detention pond to do its thing and vegetate and take care of things, how that has to do with, we want blockage. We don't want to see. Would you put that picture back up of the sticks? Right now in the winter, it looks like that. I don't have the papers that I brought the last time, but that right there looks like this for us. We can see nothing over there. And quite frankly, I don't want to see them any more than they want to see me in my backyard. That's all we're asking, but that is huge for us. You spoke really quickly and your words went by so fast. I didn't understand where it said you were going to leave stuff alone 10 feet behind our property. Is that right or not right? Because then it said, like you showed blue dots behind my property. You saw some orange dots behind their property. So I'm a little confused that are you leaving things alone from my fence 10 feet back? And then anything that's 8 inches or smaller, or 8 inches or bigger stays, 8 inches or smaller goes. I'm confused about that. I'd appreciate you to reiterate that at the end of this for me or talk to me personally about it because I'm confused on that.
Yes, and I apologize if I talked too fast.
No, it's my understanding. I don't do this for a living any more than if I rattled off some nursing stuff. I don't know that you'd get it as fast as I would, but I don't understand that. But it's frustrating, and she has been nothing but nice. We appreciate the 10 feet movement. We appreciate that, but I just can't see with the profit margin that he's making that it's going to really cut into his bottom dollar to put trees back where he's taking them out. Because if you make a pond and it sinks in and you plant a tree in it, we'll all be dead before there's any, shade or blockage. So we need the trees on the outside of the pond, not in it, against the back of our property. So that's kind of all I've got.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak in favor?
There is a citizen's job open. He said you don't know. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to reiterate what Kathy and my wife Jamie have said. First of all, thank you, Jackie. We felt heard, and we were skeptical when we left this meeting, and we really feel like we were heard. Thank you. We feel like we were heard. There have been some improvements that we are really, really happy about. One of the things that we would like to get a sense to Kathy's point of what does the sequence of events look like? Does the pond come first or does it come last? Do the trees come first or are they an afterthought after everything is done? Because all of a sudden there's some trees, all of a sudden we really would like and to work out something to where that retention pond is done, that retention pond is planted, and what we talked about, one of the concerns that we had was not only you've seen what the trees look like, and we know it's not going to look like that again. However, that piece of property drops off dramatically in the back, and it's going to take 6-foot trees before it ever sees the top of our fences. And if we're planting 3-foot trees to my wife may be here, I'll probably be gone prior to these things being big enough. So there is some land leveling issues to where those trees go, just not putting in a 3-foot tree. So that was my biggest thing because I do think that what was there before was falling down, and it will be nice, and we were never against building houses there. What we want to make sure that things are done correctly and that we aren't chasing people like we are chasing in our neighborhood right now, trying to get stuff done that was done 20 years ago and done incorrectly.
Thank you. And just to confirm before we move forward, both of you have signed in on the podium, correct? Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor?
Sign in here. My name's Teresa Boyd, and I'm next to Jamie and Rick. We just wanted to thank Jackie and all the different people who have met with us like that. A lot of times you probably don't hear positive comments, but we wanted to make sure that we really did appreciate the fact that they listened to us and met with us and tried to answer. I think I've learned a lot, like you said. We're not into this, and we have learned a lot. We do appreciate all this effort and hope to continue with it. And like Rick said, we're kind of running behind on our addition because there were things that weren't done in a timely manner. And here it is 20 years later, and you're still trying to finish the addition out. And we hope that the 6 plots or lots, I guess, don't have the same issue. So timeline is kind of an important thing to know so that we're not dealing with construction, and I'm going to be gone before all of those guys. But I did want to thank our people here who have been doing this in the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the kind comments regarding the planning staff. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? If not here in person, is there anybody on Teams that wishes to speak in favor? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone here in the room that wishes to speak against this petition tonight? Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak against it? Okay. At this time, we will bring this back, close public comment, and bring this back to the Plan Commission for discussion. So is there anyone on the Plan Commission that has comments or questions? Yeah.
Would it be possible to ask Daniel to go over that one slide again about the trees that are being taken and not taken? I think the public had some interest, and I kind of, to be honest, I misunderstood some things there too, I believe. So.
The orange and yellow.
Yeah, the colorful one, the Wonder Bread one.
Certainly. So the trees being shown are at least 8 inches in diameter. There is a bit of kind of half circle lines here that represent plantings that are less than 8 inches. So the yellow trees that are highlighted in yellow, those are marked as being removed. And will be removed as part of the petition. The orange trees will be preserved, and they will be able to count towards condition number 2, if it is approved, as one tree per every 40 feet, or even exceed it. The blue dots are areas where we feel that trees are needed in order to satisfy condition number 2 fully, if it is approved.
All right. May I ask a follow-up question? Can you also elaborate on the comment about the 10-foot off of the property line and where that sits, or what, you know?
Yes, so the petitioner has said that every tree within 10 feet of the property line will be preserved, with the possible exception of this tree here. Let's see. Yes, they have said that the petitioner feels that they may not be able to remain presumably due to the fact that the drainage is located right there.
So
they're staying or they're not staying? 10 feet off because you said they will remain, but then one tree can stay there or all of them? Okay, so just the northwest one, that's the one that's going to be taken, but everything else 10 feet stays?
That is correct.
Only because we're all there and we live there, and sometimes he hires people that just come through with these like excavator machines and stuff just starts flying. That's why we want to know what the rules are so we are real clear on it. So everything 10 feet from our property line stays, but this one big tree that could be blocking drainage.
That is correct.
Okay, just thank you very much for going over that.
Am I correct in saying that our council have no trees planted? They want on the side. We don't have any.
Sorry, I just want to make a note. So for everyone that's online, they won't be able to hear you unless you're up at the mic. So if Mr. Morris, as chair, wants to reopen the public comment, otherwise, we want to make sure your questions are answered, but we also have to comply with all the rules. So, okay. So I want to just make sure the image on the screen. So what Daniel is saying is the orange trees that are highlighted are trees that are there today that they're showing that they're going to preserve. That's, and they've opted to show trees that were at least 8 inches in diameter. So I think Ms. Stein could come up and clarify. There may be some trees in that 10-foot area that do not meet the qualification of being 8 inches that may be removed. And there is a exhibit, Daniel, if you can pull up page 2 of the preliminary plat. Those X's are showing all the trees that are going to be removed from the property. So we tried to bring those together in one image so that you could see what's being planted, what's being preserved, and then the blue dots are where we think that there is an omission of that every 40 feet, at least one tree. So that's 4 trees. And then we heard from the MS4 coordinator as well as Ms. Stein that there could be an option to move some of the bioretention trees up to that northern boundary if amenable. So those are different options discussed.
Thank you, Jackie. And sorry, I do want to interject here that the public comment portion of the meeting has closed. So I did fail to let Ms. Stein come back up for 5 minutes for her rebuttal. So if you have anything that you'd like to speak to, you have 5 more minutes. And I apologize that I overlooked that.
No, that is okay. And thank you guys for your words. We try our best as engineers and all of that, trying to meet the county code and everything. So it's a working documents, that sort of thing. Jackie, you are correct. The trees that we have shown on here are 8 inches in diameter and bigger. There are more trees. That is what the tree line represents. What they are, what size, don't know. Yeah, so, and I said, we are fine moving these tree locations. Say, we normally, years ago, we would have put them in that bottom part of the pond. They got interfered with the under drains and everything. So with work with the MS4 coordinator, with planning, they're still kind of in that area and away from the under drains. I will say this pond is 3 feet deep. So we're talking, it's not this big, huge, deep area at all. So it's not going to vary too much from the existing ground right now. And a couple of points were made requesting the 2-inch diameter, 40 feet space. That's a requirement. And Jackie or Daniel, please correct me if I'm wrong in saying that. I believe that is the minimum requirement in the Monroe County Landscape Code anyway. So we are going to be held to those standards and the street trees that are permitted within the code as well. Let's see, the other point is as far as responsibility of the pond, we also have MS4 Kelsey Thetonia on this call. We have to prepare an operation and maintenance manual that is for lot 7 that runs with the land. So that will be the responsibility of Blackwell contractors until the HOA gets established and it gets turned over. And I believe that is enforceable by MS4 Stormwater Division. And hopefully I'm not speaking out of line. Kelsey can please chime in if I'm misstating any of this. That will be overseen by the Stormwater Division. As far as the sequencing, that would be something that I would like to talk more with Kelsey Thetonia. I believe that is mainly covered in condition number 3, that the pond is to be built and as built before the building permits can be released. Sometimes the plantings come in later, and that is typically just for stabilization. So that may be just more sequencing and to make sure that some things don't get installed and then get silted because upstream isn't stabilized. So there's definitely a sequence in that, and I believe condition number 3 calls for that pond to be in place prior to the building permits being issued. So I think that is all I have, but I can certainly answer more questions if there are any further ones.
Okay. Thank you for coming forward. Yeah, so we will bring this back. Do you have a question for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, for either, but.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sure you have, and I think the diagram where it was showing where there was going to be tree removals, because I know we've gotten into this before where we asked for tree preservation and you're preserving old trees that could compromise, structures or fall over and then break fences and stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those trees that you're looking at removing and the ones we're asking you to preserve, you feel are healthy trees? Not the ones were being removed, but the ones being preserved, I guess.
I do not feel comfortable at my capacity to answer that. I am not an arborist. I am not a landscape architect or anything like that. So I could not honestly answer that question and feel okay with an answer. I'd be pretty much making it up.
Right.
I am just trying to be honest. That's not my area of expertise at all.
And I see Miss Fatonia has her hand raised. Maybe she could help address that question, unless planning could help as well, because the last thing I want to do is make you commit to preserving a dead tree.
Understandable.
Unless it's a bat habitat. Indiana bat habitat.
Understandable.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ms. Stein before we bring it back to the Plan Commission for discussion? And I see, Kelsey, you have your hand raised. Was there something you wanted to comment on?
I would like to comment on the sequencing discussion, if you'd like me to speak on that.
Yes, please. That would be very helpful, Kelsey.
Okay. So we cannot allow the bioretention pond to be fully completed prior to construction even commencing on the lots. The purpose of it being in place in a temporary state before construction begins is so that it can serve as a temporary sediment basin to capture runoff and treat it during construction while the land is being disturbed uphill. So we will have the pond installed, we'll have the berm installed and stabilized, the outlet control structure will be installed, but there will be a temporary standpipe there that will basically allow us to clean out the basin during construction as sediment accumulates. Once the contributing area is stabilized, so the homes will be completed, majority of the area will be stabilized, then we go in, we do final grading on the pond bottom, install the underdrains, install your amended soils, and then do the final landscaping. That is a typical sequence for constructing a sediment basin. So I'm not comfortable with, saying it'll be completed and landscaped before construction begins, because that would be very expensive to have to redo that pond with the amended soils and plantings after construction is complete. So.
Thank you, Kelsey. That was helpful. Okay, bringing it back to the Plan Commission now, Mr. Pittsford, I think you had your hand raised first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure about this, so I'm trying to kind of work through this. And when I say I'm not sure about this, I mean my question, because I appreciate the report for Mr. Ayers tonight, and it sort of raises a question, and it looks like a bond of $67,083.50 was cashed on Glen Meadows phases 1 and 2. And there are $532,843.53 is the estimated cost to complete the infrastructure on those phases. Is that what's in this report?
Yes, so as part of the discussion of last meeting, there was a request to report on the nearby subdivision status. So just to make sure that the public is clear and everyone on the Plan Commission is aware, this subdivision, Springwood subdivision, is not part of Glen Meadows subdivision. It's completely separate. But Glen Meadows subdivision, there was a request that we report back because there is roadways adjacent to Springwoods, north of it, that are not in the county inventory, and there's missing infrastructure. So planning staff, as well as highway staff and stormwater division, all made an inspection to Glen Meadows to report back on the deficiencies. Generally speaking, that amount of $67,000 was for street trees and sidewalks. There has been some incremental installment of sidewalks throughout that phase of Glen Meadows. So based on deficiencies alone, it would actually be more of a cost or an estimate of $101,000, which I believe is in the report. The $530,000 estimate is what it would take to get it into the county inventory.
Right.
So that's the wear and tear, that's the remove and replace sidewalks that don't meet standards. That's not necessarily set out in the preliminary plat. What we're tasked with is making sure improvements are installed, and we wish that developers would be more timely in their requests for acceptance and that they would be more accurate in their install of those infrastructure improvements.
Right, okay. May I continue? Thank you very much for that. By the way, when you say $150,000 for the lot and the $400,000 houses, this represents the actual cost of doing an actual subdivision when you actually do it according to the way it's specified. And this is the specifications that were agreed to in the Glen Meadows plat. This, right? I'm right, correct?
Yes, the
Okay.
estimate is reviewed upon the preliminary plat, not today's
Right,
standards.
right. Okay, so this is not, well, you got started and now we decided this is what we want you to build. The objective is always to bring roads into county standards and have them adopted into the county inventory so the county can start receiving federal dollars for road improvement and all that. When this doesn't happen, the consequences just get extended. Now, my question is, if you bring up the picture that illustrates where this subdivision is, it occurs right in the middle of an incomplete subdivision and is being treated as if it is an absolutely separate subdivision with separate infrastructure. How do we allow, not staff, I'm talking about us, universally, how do we allow that to happen? Now another developer comes in, can meet the minimum standard, build the houses and walk away, and we're stuck yet again. Why are we doing this? It makes no sense to me. This is not a new subdivision in terms of its geographic location. It is a subdivision within an incomplete subdivision. It's insane. Okay, sorry, I got all wound up about that, but when I look at that, I just don't understand how we can do that. And I know we can't say to the present developer, this can't go forward because the previous developer didn't do this, but it's almost like they're playing a game. It's a shell game. We've got to find the P and stop the game. I don't get it. And it's nauseating. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pittsford. Any other questions or comments amongst the Plan Commission? Yeah, Mr. Ullman.
It might seem like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but can I return to some more questions for Daniel about tree clarification?
Sure.
Daniel, in regards to the 10-foot along the north property line, that 10-foot is no disturbance of, did I hear 8-inch trees within that 10-foot?
Trees, pretty much just all trees except for that one in the northwest, edge of the property, which may not be able to remain there because it's where the proposed drainage is.
So
but all plantings, including trees, both greater than 8 inches, equal to 8 inches, and even less than 8 inches, not less than 8 inches, I apologize, those will remain.
Okay, so we're confused again. Because I'm sorry, I know it's not the public's turn to speak, but you say one thing and you say another, and that's what we're trying to clear up. Right behind our houses, there are sticks, there are bigger, littler. I thought you just said 10 feet, everything is left alone. 10 feet from our property line towards the pond, retention, detention, whatever pond, 10 feet is left alone.
So
One at the north end that could be the way of drainage.
Let's clarify.
I understand the color coding.
Okay.
But 10 feet back, all sizes left alone. Is that correct?
Let us clarify. So what you see on the screen right now, the color coding, the orange trees are what are being preserved that are on lot 7.
I totally understand the color coding.
Yes.
I'm still not getting an answer to what I'm saying.
There's not going to be total tree preservation within the 10 feet. There's going to be a tree preservation of trees that are 8 inches or greater in diameter, and that's what is shown in orange. So there are trees, there's a vegetative buffer that you can see on the screen. They haven't inventoried every single small tree or less than 8-inch tree. What they're showing is in orange what will be preserved. So if it's not in orange and it's in that area that you're concerned of, the 10 feet, it's going away. It's going to be taken out.
As long as you all realize that is not what you just said to us. You like you just said, and I looked at you and said, 10 feet.
Mr. President, would you call this to order? If you want to have this conversation, I think that's fine, and I'm okay with that, but would you at least put some structure and have them come to the podium. So
Yeah,
this could
thank
be
you.
on record.
I think Jackie, we've closed the public comment portion, so I think it's up to us internally to discuss this. But I think the question is good for clarification about which trees are remaining, because I hear what the public is saying about the tree concerns. The other question I had on this front, in keeping with the tree discussion, is will the construction schedule listed in the third requirement under the recommendation cover the location of the trees that are supposed to be placed back?
So the information that was provided by our MS4 coordinator, I think that condition number 3, if you would like us to proceed with that, does need some amendments, because her concern is that the bioretention area cannot be final landscaped before the first lot receives building permits. All lots have to be finished with construction and then final landscaping is placed. I'm not sure if that applies to the area north of that bioretention area, if there could be plantings ahead of the plantings put within the bioretention area earlier in that time construction schedule. But what I heard from her is that as proposed, condition number 3 would not work with how they generally do things, which is the bioretention is acting as sort of a temporary sediment basin until construction is complete. Then once all construction of all the homes are finished, that's the timing when they want the as-built and the landscaping to be planted, so that they know there's no more further planned large construction happening in the area that could impact, let's say, the depth of that bioretention or the composition of the soils.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So for clarification here, Daniel or Jackie, if you can go back to the plat map there, the orange dots, which there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 of them, those are trees greater than 8 inches in diameter that are staying, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What are the yellow and the blue dots?
The yellow dots are the trees that are being removed that are 8 inches in diameter or greater. It does not indicate the trees that are less than 8 inches in diameter. They did not inventory those trees.
Okay.
So if you do not see it in orange and you do not see it in yellow and you know there's a tree there, that means it's less than 8 inches and it's going to be removed. That is my understanding, and Ms. Stein can correct me if I'm, I think it would be helpful to make sure the public's clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are proposing anything within 10 feet of that north property line is not going to be touched. We will also agree that the orange dots that they have marked are going to remain. There's no reason for us to take any further trees down than what is necessary. On our plans, we have tree preservation is 10 feet from that property line. But there are the 8-inch diameter trees that are larger that are marked in orange. Those will also be preserved. Does that make sense, planning to what we're saying?
So some of the orange trees are within the 10 feet also.
They are beyond the 10 feet.
Okay.
So
May I-
10 feet from the property line, not all the trees are shown.
Right.
Those will be left because there's little small trees in there. I don't know what's all in there. Some of the orange ones are beyond the 10 feet. We did not delineate the 10 feet. We have a note that says 10 feet on the plans. That might go to the edge of the detention pond. I don't quite know. But we will preserve those trees that are in orange and everything that is 10 feet from the property line. 10 feet, within the 10 feet.
Okay, let me interject. Sorry, public comment is closed. So Ms. Stein, can I clarify that you're
Yes.
saying everything within 10 feet of the property line is not going to be touched? Is that
That is
correct?
what I am saying. Yes.
And in addition to that, any of those orange dots that may be farther away than 10 feet from the property line will not be touched either, correct?
Correct. The orange dots. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there a diagram that shows that 10 foot so we can?
That's what I don't think it's shown on our plans.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to, and as I zoom in, it's not letting me.
Yeah, I want to say honestly that it is right along the grading line of that bioretention pond.
I'll see if I can find a.
So I think those
Better
orange
survey.
trees are, all of them are within that grouping.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other plan commissioners' questions for Ms. Stein while she's up here? Commissioner Thomas, I see that you have your hand raised as well.
Sorry about that. Yes. I really appreciate all of the residents who have shown up and the way that everyone has worked together so well. I am wondering if we could get a revised map done, maybe even just table this for till the end of the meeting and take a look at that so that there's real clarity here about tree preservation for those residents, and so that we're all on the same page. Is there some way we could take a look at this map and get something done, even on paper or something, so that there's clarity? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Daniel or Jackie, is that possible to do during this meeting if we were to table this agenda item until the end of the meeting?
I think we can work with Ms. Stein to come up with a clarification and make sure that that's clear to everybody.
Okay, without continuing this meeting, is that what you're saying, Jackie? Or
Commissioner Thomas was suggesting to just table this to the end of today's meeting, so still would be coming back for a decision tonight. Yes.
Is someone on the Plan Commission willing to make a motion to move this to the last?
Otherwise,
item
we
on
could
the
take a
agenda?
brief recess and see if we could get it done in the next 5-10 minutes if the Plan Commission is willing.
Commissioner Thomas is giving a thumbs up. Is that a thumbs up for a brief recess or table?
I'd make a motion for a recess at this time.
My thing doesn't work. I'll second the motion.
Can I interject with a question for before we make this motion and before this vote? Can I interject with a question?
Sure.
Okay. You mentioned that in the text somewhere it has that comment about, and that's in the
Yes.
text within one of the plats.
It is.
Are
Yes,
you-
I can't recall what sheet, but it does say, I forget the exact wording. But yeah, trees within 10 feet of the property line are to be preserved.
Okay, but that is in the text of one of the plats. Okay, that's just my only question. Sorry.
Yes.
Carry on, President, with your.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take a brief recess. Jackie, how much time do you need? Oh, sorry, I was unmuted.
Sure.
Let me repeat that. We've had a motion and a second to take a brief recess. How much time do you need, Jackie?
I think 10 minutes could be.
Okay, can you call the roll on that motion real quick?
Yes, it's been moved and seconded for a brief 10-minute recess for staff to work with the petitioner's engineer. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the brief recess of 10 minutes and to return at 6:55. 6:50. Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Edward Ullman.
Yes, but I'd like to add the comment that during this recess that the interfacing between the public comment and the boards being minimized or
Yes.
null and void in total, just so that comments are captured for everybody to hear, not just those that are being discussed with. So,
Okay.
but yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edward.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
All right, it's been approved for a 10-minute recess.
Okay, we'll be back at 6:50. Thank you, everybody. Okay, Jackie, I think we're ready to continue. If you could call the roll.
Yes. Let me go ahead and call the roll to reconvene the Plan Commission meeting. Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens, Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes, here.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
and then we have Chris Cockrum, our city representative, so we're all back.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. Before we continue, I just want to remind the public that the public comment portion is closed. So I appreciate everybody's understanding as we try to move the meeting forward in an orderly manner. So thank you. So Jackie, I believe during our recess, you were working with the petitioner on producing a map. Is that successful?
Tonight has been one of technical difficulties. So our GIS is currently, Elevate GIS is down, so I was not comfortable doing the 10-foot scale. But what we did do was try to put in writing what we believe captures the essence of the discussion. And I also believe the petitioner's engineer is trying to get something emailed to me as well. But if it's clarified as a condition of approval, then I think we're able to proceed based on that understanding.
Okay.
Okay,
Could you read through that condition
Yes.
of approval just for all of our clarification?
sure. I can do that. So number 1 has not changed. Number 2 and number 3 have changed. Number 2 changed based on the understanding of the preservation area of the 10 feet. And number 3 changed based on the MS4 coordinator's comments. So I'll read both number 2 and number 3. Number 2, ensure that the petitioner add or preserve trees north of the bioretention area along the entirety of the subdivision boundary east-west at a rate of 1 tree per 40 feet. Existing trees to be preserved north of the bioretention area within 10 feet of the north property line may count as 1 tree. The petitioner commits to preserving all vegetation within 10 feet of the northern property line. Number 3, the petitioner submit a construction schedule for completion of the public improvements, sidewalks, street trees, bioretention, and bioretention landscaping that shall not exceed 3 years from final platting. In addition, the sidewalk on the south side of Carmola Drive must be installed prior to the issuance of the first building permit in this subdivision. The improvements of sidewalk and street trees must be installed for each individual lot prior to the corresponding certificate of occupancy. Final bioretention stabilization and landscaping to be completed within 1 year of the final lot receiving certificate of occupancy. The bioretention must include an as-built submittal for MS4 coordinator approval.
Thank you, Jackie. Any questions or comments from members of the Plan Commission?
Can I direct a question to the petitioner, or
Sure.
can we ask her to step?
Yeah, could you step forward, Ms. Stein, to the podium, please?
So, Ms. Stein, the way that I read that, or the way that that was, Jackie just read that, and the way I understand that is that you are agreeing that in the construction process of the bioretention pond, and through that whole process of whatever land moving work needs to be done, that there will be no disturbance of anything within 10 feet of the property line.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure that that's kind of clarified, that that can be done. I don't know what construction work is going to be done in soil moving, but just as long as you guys are aware of that, I guess. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Stein while she's at the podium? Okay, thank you for coming back up again. Any other conversation or comments or questions from the Plan Commission? Yeah, Ms. Munson.
I just want to say congratulations to the petitioner and to the neighbors for working together with the staff of our planning department. And this is how we should see many projects go through, that we can have this kind of resolution of concerns. Thank you all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I do want to point out, just because we have pointed to it several times during the meeting, the highlighted map, now that we understand from Ms. Stein and as well as Ms. Thatonia, there will be some changes, and this is not as part of the conditions of approval. We're not saying we're enforcing this map in particular, because now we understand that they're preserving 10 feet of all vegetation within that northern property line. We don't know that those blue dot trees will need to be planted. We also know that the blue circles, which we added within the bioretention based on Ms. Thetonia's point of view, those are within 10 feet of the under drains and they need to be moved outside of that area. So this is not a final landscaping plan that we're approving tonight, but if you can, look to the condition of approval and that's amenable, we will work with the engineer and as well as the MS4 coordinator and get something that works for the site.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Jackie. I think the important thing for me is the 10-foot buffer between the northern property line and the pond. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Knight.
Sorry, I was processing a couple of different things that I think granted my attention a little bit as you were reading that last condition as it was being revised. And I guess it goes back to my first question. Is there enough flexibility here where we're making it, I think, conditioned to the MS4 coordinator's approval, where if we're having dead trees being preserved, or if there's dead trees within that 10 feet of preservation, that they still have the ability to remove those? And I think that should be part of this because as Ms. Stein has stated, she's not an arborist, and I think that we should at least allow the ability for them to remove trees that are dying, and if not, and they commit to this, they're gonna have to come back all the way here just to remove a dead tree. And I think that's a little too much to ask. So does what you just read, does that give that flexibility? And it could be contingent to the MS4 coordinator or something like that.
What I would suggest is the last sentence of number 2, just to address that potential concern, is that the petitioner commits to preserving all viable vegetation within 10 feet of the northern property line. Is that?
That's perfect. I just
will make
think
that
that's
change.
important.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the Plan Commission? Did you have something else to add, Jackie?
No, we were just discussing the time period of that preservation. Since this is going to be on the bioretention lot and not on individual property owners' lots, I think that something within the HOA document for the subdivision, we can make a note that this is preserved in perpetuity, all viable landscaping preserved in perpetuity back there.
Okay, so when they get older and they need to be removed, they have the ability to do that, essentially.
If it's no longer viable,
As
but
long
I
as
think they still be maintained the 1 tree per 40 feet based on that condition.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, or if there are none, do we have a motion?
If we can get that slide back up where it's legible, I can try and make a motion.
Apologies, it seems that when we clicked view presentation, it wasn't updating with the correct or new information, so I just exited the presentation and hit slideshow again to present that.
You're good. Can I just comment towards the conditions posted? So I recommend we move approval based on for case SPP-23-4. I move we approve it following the conditions stated in front of all of us, unless you want me to read all of that. I have to read it all? Okay, condition 1. Oh, my Lord. That's why no one jumped to it.
You need to make it larger.
I guess I'm just the only one gullible enough to try to read this. Add the note that the plat, all new utilities include but not limited to gas, sewer, electric power, telephone, and CAT TV shall be located underground throughout the subdivision per 856-41. Condition number 2, ensure that the petitioner add or preserve trees north of the bioretention along the entirety of the subdivision boundary east-west at a rate of 1 tree per 40 foot, existing trees to be preserved with of the preserved north of the bioretention within 10 feet of the north property line may count as one tree. Petitioner/homeowner association commits to preserving all viable vegetation within 10 feet of the northern property line. Condition number 3, petitioner submit a construction schedule for completion of the public improvement, sidewalk, street tree, bioretention, and bioretention landscaping that shall not exceed 3 years from final plating. In addition, the sidewalk on the south side of Carmola Drive must also be installed prior to issuance of the first building permit in the subdivision. The improvement of sidewalk and street tree must be installed for each individual lot prior to corresponding certificate of occupancy. Final bioremediation, stabilization, and landscaping to be completed within 1 year of the final lot receiving certification of occupancy. The bioremediation must include an as-built submittal for MS4 coordinator annually.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved.
And waive of final hearing request.
Okay.
My second stands.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve SPP-23-4, Springwoods Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat with a waiver of final hearing with the conditions as stated by Member Ullman, with just one friendly amendment, believe, based on reading the screen. I will reread condition number 3, if that is amenable.
Please do.
Petitioners submit a construction schedule for completion of the public improvements, sidewalks, street trees, bioretention, and bioretention landscaping that shall not exceed 3 years from final plating. In addition, the sidewalk on the south side of Carmola Drive must also be installed prior to issuance of the first building permit in this subdivision. The improvements of sidewalk and street trees must be installed for each individual lot prior to the corresponding certificate of occupancy. Final bioretention, stabilization, and landscaping to be completed within 1 year of the final lot receiving certificate of occupancy. The bioretention must include an as-built submittal for MS4 coordinator approval. A vote in favor is a vote to approve the subdivision and the conditions as stated with the waiver of final hearing.
Just
this is
as
the
a matter
final
of
hearing.
formality, did the person giving the second approve the friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Daniel pointed out this is the final hearing, so no waiver of final hearing needed. All right, I will go ahead and call the roll. Dee Owens?
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Edward Ullman?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 8-0.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you to all the members of the public that came out to speak for this. Thank you to all of you and the petitioner for working together with planning staff to come to a resolution. So, as I mentioned earlier, case PUO-23-7, the Trails at Robertson Farm, has been continued by the petitioner, so we will not be hearing that tonight. So moving on to new business, we have case ZOA-23-3, the amendment to the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 807. Jackie?
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to pull up the packet here.
Jeff, that might be the last motion I make for the
He
next
just
3 years.
introduced signs. Yes. Yes. Because I haven't shared the screen yet. Very good. Okay, so the signs ordinance is listed in the packet. For your clarity, we've included both a clean version as well as a track changes version. So I'm gonna go to the track changes version, which is, I think, beyond page 36. You know what? Only the clean version is included in the packet. I apologize for that. I will summarize these changes and go over anything that the Plan Commission will have any questions on. So first and foremost, under purpose and intent, one of the things that we strive to do with this text amendment was to make sure that we had timing of our permitting requirements and approval procedure in place. So you'll see that we have added that later on in the chapter. We've also added that we wanted to encourage certain sign types as a way of communicating to the public that we would like to see a certain aesthetic value realized and preserved for the county. So we were saying building signs, monument signs, and wall signs are the types of signs that we are encouraging in the county under this signs ordinance. We also, as I mentioned, added timing and procedures. So 807-4, page 39 of the packet, this content is new. And so what it's doing is it's saying that we have 12 business days in order to review a permit and tell the applicant whether that permit has been approved or denied. And so we added provisions in here that we may communicate either by mail or online, depending on their mode of application. We also added back in the height and setback of signs illustrations that was removed in a prior version of our sign ordinance changes. Even though we don't want to encourage maybe pole signs or billboard signs in the ordinance, we still think that it's important that we're able to illustrate, if these signs were to occur, what the height could be of those signs based on the elevation existing. So we have 2 signs that are not permitted based on this height, and you'll see, even though it's within 25 feet of the ground to the top of the sign, due to the elevation of the roadway in which the sign is targeted, it would actually be measured as a 50-foot height, which would not be allowed. And then in the other example, again, then you can also measure it from the ground up to the top of the sign. Again, this is a 50-foot measurement, which would not be permitted. And then the other 2 images show a 25-foot compliant sign from the ground measurement to the top of the sign. So that's both illustrated as well as spelled out in the ordinance. The next set of changes that we wanted to add were that we wanted to include a lot of visuals. So we're not, when we're reviewing signs, we are not looking at content. We are specifically looking at time, place, and manner. So we're looking at the location of the sign, the manner of the sign. So we're asking that, it needs to have certain illumination criteria. We're able to measure it based on the outer edges or boundaries of that sign without looking at its content. So we gave some examples in the beginning of like a canopy sign. The yellow box on the screen here is showing the limits of a canopy sign, and the blue arrows are showing the width and the length that we would measure. And this is a building sign measurement as well as a ground sign. And then we also added in here a illustration of a V-shaped sign. So we've always had the content stating that it has to be no more than 42 inches apart, but to make sure that we are clear on where we're measuring that 42 inches apart, we added this illustration. And then towards the bottom of the sign ordinance, there was a request which we thought was very helpful to staff, and I think the public alike, that we would have an appendix of an image of all the sign types that are defined in a different chapter, which is 801. So we have included those as their title, sign, comma, animated, corresponds to a definition in chapter 801, and then you can also see a visual. So we've done this for every definition in chapter 801, so I will scroll through these slowly. That's all the images. Are there any questions on this edit to Chapter 807?
I don't know if this is really a good question or not, but I guess the only bad question is when you don't ask. On your example of a ground sign, there is an example that appears to be on a wing wall of concrete. And the question, because at a glance I thought it looked like it was suggesting the text painted on there. If a wing wall of this construction was painted and there's a message in the paint on the, is that considered a sign too? Or is it only something that's affixed to that wing wall?
So signs can include painted.
Okay, in this instance, or this example, if that text is painted on there, it's the same as if it is affixed on a board to that, correct?
If someone applied for a sign permit and they were proposing to paint onto this ground sign, it would be evaluated in the same way as an affixed sign, as long as the outer boundaries of that sign were able to be measured.
Okay, all right. I was just curious.
Yes.
Just curious.
Yeah, Mr. Packer.
So Jackie, what you might have said that what triggers a sign when it's being changed to come into compliance? What would trigger that?
So are you asking about message substitution or complete like tear down and put up of a new sign?
Exactly. So like if someone was just renovating a sign that's currently in place, or if somebody wanted to propose a new sign, is there anything that would trigger that code that I guess, is it only when they want to redo a new sign that this would come into play?
So it depends. We do have a section in here that is not changing on lawful pre-existing non-conforming signs, and that relates directly to billboards. So if you have an existing billboard and you want to do some sort of maintenance to that sign, such as like replace some of the posts, you can only do that, say 50% of the posts can be repaired at one time. And there's also an allowance in here based on state code that if you have, and I'll go ahead and pull that up so I quote it correctly. So under 807-2, applicability and message substitution, it says Part A is also helpful with Mr. Pittsford's question. A sign may be erected, placed, established, painted, created, or maintained in the county jurisdictional area only in conformance with the standards, procedures, exemptions, and other requirements of this chapter. And then it states, based on the Indiana code, this is a direct quote, the owner of any sign that is otherwise allowed by regulation may substitute non-commercial copy in place of any other commercial or non-commercial copy. The substitution of copy may be made without the issuance of an additional permit by a local government agency. The purpose of this provision is to prevent any inadvertent favoring of commercial speech over non-commercial speech or favoring of any particular non-commercial message over any other non-commercial message. The provision prevails over any more specific provision in this regulation to the contrary. So though we're not looking at the content, it's important that we follow these guidelines to allow for message substitution. But yes, typically if someone is unsure, they can call our office or apply for a sign permit, and we'd be able to apply any criteria and let them know, yes, this requires a permit, or no, you would not need a permit for this.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes.
I have another question, because as the painted thing, the reason I think of this is because I see businesses that have a vehicle parked that's a delivery vehicle, in some cases, maybe not even functioning as a delivery vehicle that has their temperature on if a business were to have a wing wall of significant size or even an exterior wall, they create a mural on it. Let's say the business is a landscape or a florist or whatever, and they create a mural of a floral scene, and included in that mural is reference to their business. This big, and the wall is that big. Is the whole wall calculated as sign, or is only the text related to their business calculated as sign?
It's a great question. I would be under the impression that it would be the entire painted area, and if it exceeded the maximum amount, that they could pursue a variance. We're not able to look at the message and decipher this is the exact messaging and this is artwork, because then we're reviewing content.
But in the long history of advertising, signs mimic artwork, and artworks tend to mimic signs. So where do we draw the line? How is that distinction made?
I think Mr. Schilling would also agree that the case law is unclear on signs, but we're trying as much as possible to stay away from regulating or reviewing content-based specific information for signs. We are just trying to review it as a time, place, and manner. If you're creating a sign of a certain size, whether that includes some part of your logo or message, we have to review the outer boundaries of that.
Jerry, the definition of sign would encompass anything that is intended to communicate information. So a decoration might not do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know the answer to this question, but I just feel like I wanted to bring it up. I know a lot of what we're doing is to try to, I don't know, not necessarily prevent, but limit pole signs. But one of my driving concerns on this, no pun intended, is safety and line of sight. And when a monument sign is going to obstruct a line of sight, there's a provision in here where you could allow a pole sign so we could have good visible lines of sight for safety concerns. And if you wanted just to point that out, that would be great, but I just wanted to bring it up for the public just in case, you know, they're unaware and they don't want to read how many pages of sign ordinances.
So the section starting on page 7 at the bottom is listing the prohibited signs, and it does not include pole signs, as was maybe a prior version that you had seen. So we don't outright prohibit pole signs. We also, in a prior version, had a height that was much smaller than what we're putting back into the ordinance. So I think, and then there's also the provision that no sign can inhibit or hinder sight distance.
Okay, and that's my main concern. I don't know if I have too much of a say on wanting to vote for this either way, but I'll leave that for my colleagues.
Any other questions or comments for Jackie before we open this up for public comment? Did you have one, Edward? Okay. Seeing none, we will now move to members of the public who are here to speak in favor of the amendments to the sign ordinance. If there is anyone, please come to the podium. Seeing none, if there's anybody on Zoom that's here to speak in favor of this amendment, please raise your virtual hand. And seeing none, if there's anybody in the audience who is here to speak against the sign amendments, please come forward. Or on Zoom to speak against it, please raise your virtual hands. Okay, seeing none, we'll bring this back to the Plan Commission for discussion. Is there any comments that anybody has?
Yeah,
I guess my comment is with Jerry's line of questioning, it leaves some uncertainty and ambiguity, and it's somewhat ambiguous to understand what's going to be considered artwork or decoration and what's going to be considered a sign in some cases. And just with that, I feel like I don't know if I want to recuse myself because of the lack of understanding and it being somewhat ambiguous, but I just want to indicate I probably will not vote yes for this, just to my colleagues so they know where I stand.
Any other questions or comments?
I just kind of want to make a comment and kind of addressing the general questioning that was made from us that, you know, at the end of the day, I want to remind people that we cannot write rules, regulations, and laws that cover everything absolutely perfectly. There will always be a hole somewhere. There will always be a question arise somewhere, whether it's artwork, whether it's, you know, whatever it can be. So, you know, I see the content, the meat of everything that was presented as being positive, and that's kind of the intent where I'm heading, you know. So.
If I might, the text that Dave read regarding what constitutes a sign, that's from state law, or is that from our ordinance?
It's from chapter 801 of our ordinance.
Okay, so it's in our ordinance, but it's not here, like in what we were looking here at 807, right?
Yeah, the definition standards are in 801.
Right.
Yes.
So I think because that particular wing wall illustration is what prompted my question, and I realize definitions. I just feel like what he read should be somewhere inserted into chapter 807. What constitutes signage text. Am I making any sense?
Yes, Dave was just asking, under our new ordinance, we will have fancy hyperlinks that will connect the dots between the different chapters. But if you would like to suggest we go ahead and just insert the definition of signs from chapter 801, we can put that in there. We can definitely reference that, copy and paste it.
I think it seems to
Okay.
make sense.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pitzer.
I just have to scroll back to the correct page. So you give me just a second here. Very near. I miss the days when we had the go-to option, go-to page.
Yes. We don't have that anymore.
I have to go back to the agenda to get it. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. In the matter of ZOA-23-3, an amendment to the Monroe County zoning ordinance related to Chapter 807 signs, I move approval of the changes noted herein tonight's meeting. My motion includes a waiver of the final hearing. That is my motion in sum.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve or send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners for ZOA-23-3 amendments to the Monroe County zoning ordinance, chapter 807 signs, which includes a waiver of final hearing as well as a change to chapter 807 that is including adding the definition of signs under chapter 801 to chapter 807. A vote yes is a vote to send this to the commissioners with a favorable recommendation. Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Sometimes it just flashes blue occasionally, so. Do I hold it down? Okay. But I guess my question, would it be appropriate or am I allowed to recuse myself on this? I just feel like I can pass. I'll pass.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yep.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Moving on to our next case, PUO-23-6, the North Park 2 PUD Outline Plan Amendment 1, preliminary hearing. Ann, it's your turn.
Thank you. Okay, so this is preliminary hearing with a waiver of final hearing requested. Here we go. So the petition site is located in Bloomington Township, Section 30. We are looking at a property off of North Packing House Road. It is 98.6 acres and is a former quarry site. The petitioner is Packing House Road LLC, owned by Milestone Contractors LP, and is represented by Mr. Daniel Butler of Bynum Faneuil and Associates. So we are looking at the southwest corner of West State Road 46 and I-69-37. So just a couple of photos to get yourself acquainted of the property that we're looking at. Here's an aerial imagery from 2022 and a pictometry with a slightly different orientation of the property from 2020, I believe. So the property is zoned North Park 2, which is a planned unit development, and it was created in 2004 separately from the adjacent parent North Park PUD. The adjacent properties in this area are zoned either just North Park PUD, light industrial, quarry, or limited industrial. There's also single-family residential 3.5 and estate residential in the area. There are no zoning overlays on the property. So quick summary, we are looking at a request to amend the North Park 2 PUD ordinance to add mass grading with filling operations as a permitted use to the entirety of the 98.6 acre site. Just an image of our public hearing timeline. This has gone to Drainage Board in December and January. And it went to the Plan Review Committee on February 8th, where they did not forward a recommendation to the Plan Commission. If the waiver of final hearing is not approved here today, then the final hearing would be on March 19th. So included with the petition for this PUD outline plan amendment, there was a conceptual eastern 26 acre fill operation development plan. It's a conceptual development plan. That is the image on your right. On the left is a concept of a western 30 acre fill operation that was included with the original pre-design for this petition. So I apologize, we've got quite a few slides that have quite a bit of text on them. I couldn't quite get around it. So the petitioners provided a definition for mass grading with filling operations, and that is to fill the site with excess materials from other construction projects. They state that the fill must be clean. They state that the fill would be compacted and tested per geotechnical standards for future buildability, that on-site crushing of materials is allowed but anticipated to be seldom and would be for the purposes of obtaining proper clean and fill placement, and that resale of any on-site fill is not allowed and only for use of filling site to proposed engineered grades. We have a statement regarding the fill material, which has come up a few times. So it is our intention to fill the site with excess materials from construction projects, that the primary clean fill material from the projects would be in situ soils and aggregates from projects, that asphalt pavements that are removed from projects would be recycled at their asphalt plant and not taken to the site, that there is a possibility that a small amount of concrete from removed curbs, sidewalks, or drives could be brought to the site, but the material would be crushed before it's incorporated in any fill. To continue, that once the material at the site, it would be placed on lifts and compacted per geotechnical standards for buildability. That on-site crushing of concrete is possible but seldom. And that all fill material must be clean and no environmental questionable material is allowed unless tested. So the petitions, since you've got a little bit of an understanding of what this basic petition request is, we're going to come back and look at the site again. So the petition site is located in the quarry landscape and open space districts of the Monroe County Urbanizing Area Plan, Phase 1 of the Comprehensive Plan. Again, the Plan Review Committee heard this on February 8th. Staff recommended that the PRC forward a negative recommendation based on the comprehensive plan only. The PRC did not vote on the petition. Some background history about the site. So the North Park 2 PUD, this is made up of 2 use areas under the Ordinance Appendix C. So use area 19 is light industrial district and use area 20 is a quarry/heavy industrial district. So here are the current uses that are approved on site. There are a smattering of uses. There's a few uses under business and personal services, under retail and wholesale trade, with the majority, I believe, coming to 36 uses under the manufacturing, mining, construction, and industrial category of uses. The site also contains open space and preservation area. This is also referred to as open space or linear park and vegetation conservation areas. So there are 2 portions of the property that are required to be preserved. On their conceptual plans, they've called these development-free zones. So on the left, you can just see a rough highlight of these areas on the site that they've identified as being development-free. And on the right, we can see just a zoomed-in area of development-free zone that includes one of the open quarry pits on the site. So some historical information. Mr. Duncan Campbell with the Monroe County Historic Preservation Board of Review made some inquiries regarding the historic status of these I-69 corridor limestone sites. He contacted the original historic preservation consulting firm and the National Register officer at the Division of Historic Preservation and Archaeology Office for the state and confirmed that as part of the I-69 work that the National Register of Historic Places Property Documentation Form was submitted to the National Register of Historic Places in 2015 as a multiple property listing. He stated that the document was received, accepted, and endorsed by the National Register, and as such represents an officially accepted study cited as a good example of the type of properties that should be nominated to the National Register. So within the multiple property documentation form, this allows them to be eligible for listing in the National Register. Here is an image regarding some of the historic features that was identified under that I-69 quarry study. Some things that might not necessarily be there now, but we do see kind of the areas outlined, like one of the large open pits is shown as being Hunter Stone Company quarry. There's some information on where the office was, where one of the original mills was. So this multiple property documentation form, they serve as a qualifying example of specific historic property types considered eligible for listing in the National Register. So at this time, they are not protected under state or federal designation, but listed as eligible. So just to outline some of the features on the site regarding the historic kind of aspect of this. So starting on the top left of this image, the quarry hole highlighted in yellow, that is within the development-free zone or the open space / linear park area. So that quarry is to not be touched under the current PUD ordinance. The quarry, let's go down to the left. So the pink quarry hole, there is no protection for that open pit. Going to the right, the quarry hole that's shown in red, that there's no protection, it's zoned PUD. Then going up, we're actually looking off-site. There is a quarry hole and also an old mill structure. This will be relevant as I will speak on this a little bit later, but the petitioner, the property owner, does own both of those properties to the north. They are not zoned North Park 2 PUD. They are zoned quarry, but I will come back to this, so we might look at this image again. So kind of moving on to just some general site conditions. The site is vegetated and contains remnants of the past use as limestone quarry. Cartographically, general maps for this area identifies one stream that splits running through the property, and there are multiple open quarry pits on the site. Regarding drainage, the MS4 coordinator has identified that the property drains northwest towards a former quarry area that's restricted in that development-free zone. As a vacant quarry, there are existing quarry ponds and piles of rock throughout the site. There's a stream that runs south to north just west of the proposed eastern fill area. This stream that they've mentioned has a drainage area of under a square mile and flows to an NDOT culvert that runs under State Road 46. And there's also an off-site discharge from I-69 infrastructure in the area. So to continue on, that there was a car study completed by Hydrogeology Inc. and provided to the petitioner. So the full report can be found under a link in Exhibit 1. We have a snippet here of one of the maps provided. It does outline that the study found 17 sinkholes, 5 springs, and 1 sinking stream. The study goes on to recommend 25-foot sinkhole conservancy areas around all 17 sinkholes. The study does state that those sinkhole conservancy areas are recommended because of our Monroe County zoning ordinance that requires sinkhole conservancy areas. The study states that the survey was limited to surface inspection with no subsurface investigation, that unknown karst features are possible present in the subsurface at the site, and that dense vegetation and remnant quarry blocks were present over most of the site, which prevented close ground inspection. So the petition was originally, it was introduced at the November 1st Drainage Board and discussed at the December and January Drainage Board meetings. The petitioner is requesting to fill in some areas. Originally, they've accommodated some Drainage Board comments and have removed 1 sinkhole and 1 spring, sinkhole, sinking stream and spring. They're highlighted in yellow on the image to the right. The other sinkholes on the property that we were just looking at have not necessarily been addressed under any of these conceptual development plans so far. Future fill is also indicated in other areas. So filling a sinkhole is subject to Drainage Board and planning review. Typically, sinkhole conservancy areas cannot be filled. However, consideration is be given to the site as it was a former quarry site. So to continue with stormwater comments, Kelsey Thetonia, MS4 coordinator, I'm going to not get into the specific comments, but some of her broader review. So they were stating that a wetland delineation would be requested during a development plan review. So if this amendment was approved and the petitioners went and moved forward with the development plan, this is some of the information that they would then require. That the Drainage Board would also require a flood inundation study be completed for the stream and that its floodplain be avoided. That they would look closely at runoff and water quality practices along with other comments during the development plan review. That some of the comments, specific comments that they've brought up at those previous meetings, they know can be addressed during development plan review. But they would like issues with the karst impacts figured out before a final completing their review of the outline plan. And that if this proceeds, the MS4 coordinator will provide Drainage Board with updates during that development plan review. So after plan review committee, staff had quite a few questions for them, of which, we have gotten responses from. So one of our larger questions was asking the petitioner to provide information as to why the site at current grade is not viable for future industrial uses. They are stating that there is a current large open quarry hole in the middle of the current fill proposal, that this is from previous mining, and that at minimum would need to be filled with engineered fill to support any economically viable use for industrial or commercial. They've stated that Hannah Trucking, which is the property adjacent to the south of their proposed eastern fill site, has raised the grade, and they're proposing to match similar elevations. And that as a general desire, businesses like to be seen and displayed. The next question staff posed and received a response from is regarding the properties to the north. So we requested that they provide some information as how these properties would be accessed. They informed us that they are owned by the same property owner, and that the petitioner wishes to fill property to the north as a subsequent phase with a future connection coming from a future built-up road. They state that the fill plan would be considered phase 1, and that for phase 1, the petitioner wishes to access the northern property through the northeast side where grade differences are less than right now. However, the property to the north is vacant old quarry land with no access needed temporarily. And then they go on to state that perhaps that the north property could also partially be protected as open space for a visually protected historic old quarry. And then they go on to say that the strip to the northwest will be protected under the ordinance. So again, this site is zoned quarry. It is not a part of the North Park 2 PUD. And they suggest that this area may be open to discussion. So for the recommendation for PUO 23-6, so staff is recommending forwarding the petition with a negative recommendation to the county commissioners subject to the highway department and stormwater reports. We do have a list here that if a positive recommendation is considered, we have some ideas regarding a written commitment, and we have 5 conditions here, or 5 written commitments that we've included. The first is that a requirement that the developer provide the geotechnical reports during the fill of any portion of the property as stated by the petitioner's representative in Exhibit 3. Number 2, that stockpiles on the site should not exceed 20 feet in total height. Number 3, commit to properly protecting all identified karst features, springs, and sinking streams as identified in the karst study in Exhibit 1. Number 4, a commitment to put in a subsequent industrial use within 10 years from development plan approval. And 5, conditions that would monitor off-site contamination and a remediation plan to enact if pollution is identified.
Thank you, Ann. Any questions from the Plan Commission to Ann? Yeah.
Ms. Crecelius, could you go back to Duncan Campbell's report on this property and identify on a map those historic quarry properties that are eligible for the National Register of Historic Places?
So it is this petition site is a part of a multiple property listing. Yes, so it does include the property to the north that the county commissioners own.
Mm-hmm. And, but there are individual features within the multiple property listing that are recognized as eligible. Can you identify those on a map?
I don't know if I have a good exhibit that shows that in front of me.
Okay. Well, I'm needing to see that to have anything positive to say about that. But I wish to make the point that once a property is determined eligible for the National Register, it also has a degree of protection, just as those that are listed on the National Register.
If anybody else has questions, we can take them. And then Cheryl, I will look up the multiple property listing under the state shard database.
Okay.
And I'll see if I can find a good example or a good exhibit for this, if that's all right.
Thank you. I
No.
think Ms. Weintraub's report probably has something in it.
The next image on the slide, this was one of, so this is the black bold line is the southern portion of the
Right.
multiple property listing.
Uh-huh.
So this is the portion that's on the petition site, but I don't have the rest of the image in front of me. I can pull it up real quick. That has the other areas that are included.
Okay.
And please, Ms. Crecilius, if you feel like Ms. Fatonia would be better at answering these. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the January Drainage Board, but I was there for the December. But I am reading the minutes, and we did touch on this in the December meeting, but Ms. Crecilius was saying that a wetland delineation at the development plan review to make sure that we don't inadvertently fill in any jurisdictional wetlands. Would this be considered the plan review process of that? And if so, has any of that been done?
No, this is an amendment to add the use to the property.
Okay.
So, and Kelsey can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the considerations will be very specifically hashed out if it gets to the development plan stage.
Okay, yeah. I feel like some of these need to be known prior. And then also the stream that runs through the middle of it and it's creating a buffer, it seems like that would potentially really limit what you can do on the property. So I'm wondering, if these things, if there are jurisdictional wetlands, which I'm completely against filling in any wetlands, and if there's a stream running through that, is this even still a viable piece of property for what your goal is? That's my question, because I feel like there's a lot of karst features and other things going on, and I think the impact of the groundwater could be quite significant because they are old quarry holes. And I know that I had this conversation, and Mr. Butler was there at the Drainage Board, where it's like, I know it says that their goal is to have clean fill, but they're not inspecting every truck. And I don't want to get into this idea that people are going to try to, dump bad fill, but we don't really have a process in place where we're checking everything either. So, that's a big concern for this particular area, because there's probably a lot of conduits that could feed right into our groundwater, and that could create quite a big burden on us and the water quality aspect of things. So, and then finally, one other point, which I don't think it's just a good point, and I'm going to bring it up. Let me bring up my other set of minutes. Is the expected 33,000 triple dump trucks, triaxle dump trucks going over the roads in a period of 3 to 4 years. I think that's just significant to understand, and maybe that's at a later phase, but how are we going to address the wear and tear on the roads I don't know. We don't regulate that. I just thought that was a significant point from me reviewing these minutes, and I just wanted to bring that comment up.
Thank you, Tron. Any other questions for Ann before we turn it over to the petitioner?
I have found the document that Cheryl's referencing, if you'd like. Okay. So the full district is spanning multiple pages. So this is on the north side of the property. So here's the southern part where I took that clip from. The proposed Hunter Valley Historic Landscape District is in this bold line. So across State Road 46 onto the county commissioner owned area. And then as it continues north, it identifies a lot of old pits and structures. So, and then you can of course see the Superfund site to the left.
Thank you, Ann. Any other questions for Ann? Okay, seeing none, we'll turn it over to the petitioner. You'll have 15 minutes to share with yourself and anybody else that wishes to speak on behalf of the petitioner.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Daniel Butler. I'm with Bynum Fanning Associates. I'm a civil engineer licensed in Indiana. With me today is Mr. AJ Chandler. He's with Packing House Road LLC, representing the ownership. Also online, there are a few ownership entities that if there's any questions for ownership. And then also with us today is Mr. Jason Crothy. He's with Hydrogeology, Inc., and he's here today. So if there's any questions, Mr. Crothy does a great job with his reports. I think he does a thorough job, and this is it's a large site, so there is a lot of, a big report to go through on this, and I think he does a great job with his reports. To answer one question off the bat, I have a few different answers to questions or things to bring up. But one answer to a question is that we already have had environmental reports done on the property as well that included delineation of wetlands and delineation of any stream types on the property. And we'd like to, stay out of those. And so that's already actually, we've already actually done that. There shows to be one piece that there's a road already on right now, one kind of piece of a wetland that there's the road kind of passes through right now, but we don't anticipate or want to touch any karst features. We don't want to touch any wetlands, and we don't want to touch the stream. Now, there is a future road that's supposed to go through this property. It's a part of the North Park Ordinance. And so they lined out where the road network is supposed to go through North Park. And it does go through this property. And so that does come up north. So we are, as part of this fill process, starting to, you could say, just at a very slight grade. We're not going up very fast, about 2 to 3%. So that's a very slight grade going upward as we go north, and then it's going to turn to the west as a future phase, and that will go over that stream at that point, but with a culvert getting the appropriate, we don't want to touch the stream, so it would be some kind of culvert or encapsulation of that stream at that time, but we're not doing that as part of this phase, if that makes sense. This process or this hearing tonight is to get this process going on this property and to start the fill process so that one day that this will be a viable, usable, not necessarily industrial, it could be commercial too, but something that would be compacted and engineered so that the grade is usable so you can build future put a loading on that of a building or parking lots, and that's what we would be doing with this process. So we can't be putting anything environmentally impactful at all, because we have to. That would be tested in the future, and that would be devastating to a future project. And so that's why we need to test as we go. Now, one suggestion that's been brought up at PRC is that we test downstream and upstream. So that what's coming off-site, because that stream that goes through the middle, we're not the only one that flows from or properties. So we test at that point, and then we test downstream to make sure we're not adding anything to this. And that would be one way of doing it, is periodically or whatever, we're open to any suggestions, but we wish to test that to make sure there's nothing impactful coming to this water. There was a question at PRC about, has this been done before? Is this something brand new? Over the last 10 years of my own experience, I've filled different quarries. Not me personally, I guess I should reword that. I've been a part of projects that have filled in quarries that were, I would say, more filled than this, and then also built on top of it. And if you guys wish I could go through some of those projects, you'd see them around town. You can see them in Monroe County. So that has to be done in a very careful process using geotechnical, civil, and structural engineers to make sure that that would work and be safe. I believe that this property can be both. It does not have to be either historic quarry land or a development property. I think we can do both here. I think we can set aside areas of this property that can be historic quarry and not touched. Now, one piece of that is a piece of the PUD that's already designating a piece that can't be touched already. But I think that we can work and make sure that some of those, I think it can be both. It's 98 acre site, and that we can set aside some of that, primarily on that north end where that Ann was showing us where some of the different historic preservation areas could go. And I think we could do both on this. We are fine. Jackie listed, or I guess Ann and Jackie listed 5 conditions that they would consider giving this a recommendation of approval. All of these are fine with the exception of number 4. We can't commit to a future development on this. We don't know when that will happen. We want to, we wish to. We wish that this would be a place for future development, but putting that within a time frame to say that we will have something, a user on this in 10 years, we don't know. We couldn't promise you that. So that's the only one that we wouldn't be able to commit to. The other one, this may be a question for Ann, but number 2 does state that stockpiles can't be more than 20 feet. I don't know if that means temporary stockpiles or if that's actually the fill of the site. With that, I'm here for any questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Do any members of the Plan Commission have questions? Yep, go ahead, Mr. Knight Randolph, and then Mr. Pittsford.
Basically the same line of questions, but from what I got from you, it sounds like you're committing to not impact any of the delineated karst features, the stream, and was there any jurisdictional wetlands on there that came from the study?
Yes, there are on site. That's correct.
Okay, and so your goal is to move with this fill site, but preserve those areas and maybe over time stabilize it for a potential development if that becomes a thing. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Yeah, Mr. Pittsford.
Thank you. I would like to hear you state what I've read again, I think. The query hole circled in green in the illustration tonight is not currently protected. That query hole is visible from the bypass, correct? The one circled in green, that's visible from the bypass, correct?
I'm colorblind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't see the green.
So
Is it yellow?
The round circle.
It's yellow.
There you go. Yes. And it's actually, it says green on here, but anyway. So that is the one that is visible from 46. Yes. And it is not currently protected. You are saying petitioner is willing to, in this process, add it to the protected query holes that are already identified in the North Park subdivision.
Yes, that was the one that I said in a previous statement in the packet that I think we're willing to have a discussion on that. If this gets approved, we don't want to, we understand that this is an area that's, limestone was the livelihood of this area, and so we want that type of preservation, and so that would be the one that you named would also be up for discussion. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good, because, and it does affect the way I view this, because that quarry hole is, I think, a pretty good example of the way the quarry holes have evolved over time when not being used. The color of the water, the changes of the seasons in that. I actually have pictures in my house taken at that quarry hole over 4 different seasons of the year. So I happen to think it is a good example of an unreclaimed quarry that doesn't take up a significant amount of property, remains viewable to the public, has a historic feature adjacent to it. So that trade-off of putting that in a protected status recommends this to me more than it did when I saw it at the plan review. And that's was my question, and I wanted to make sure of. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Ullman.
If I can, it sounds like you really got a lot of pictures of this quarry, and I don't want to say that I don't want to say you might be wrong, but I think that the one that's viewable from the bypass is not that one, but it's the one to the left, the long skinny one.
Okay, you're right. You're right. It's that other one.
Yeah, it's
this one is visible only in parts of the year.
Yeah, I think that like this time of year you can see the one that
Right.
the center right one.
Okay, protected.
But the far left one with the long skinny yellow.
Right.
That one is
the one I
viewable.
photographed.
That one's viewable year round.
Right.
May I add to that? The long skinny one is a part of the preservation, and then we are also not one or the other, also adding to the one to the right that was the circle that Mr. Pittsford had talked about as well.
And thank you, Edward. You're right. The other one is the more photogenic one, but this one also still serves as a good example.
Photogenic holes.
Any other,
Monroe County.
any other questions or comments for Mr. Butler? Yeah, Mr. Knight Randolph.
Could you talk about the process of inspecting some of the fill to ensure that it's clean fill? I mean, again, I'm not going to fearmonger over here and question people's ethics and such, but where's the assurance that we could have that this is going to be clean fill? Because it's the area in question for me. I understand the need of having a fill site in Monroe County, but just due to the environmental concerns here, you know, everything I mentioned earlier, could you just touch on that?
I've been a part of a few types of sites around town that deal with, there's a need for anything that's brought on that site has to be clean, and there are testing agencies that do that type of, now, like you've already stated, to test every single truck is impossible. But however, so I think that's a 2-step process. It must be. You're going to have to test some of the trucks, some of the fill, so you have to know where it's coming from. That can be tested there, but I recommend testing at the site because, you know, who knows what happens between there and here. And then also doing the monitoring. So you monitor upstream and downstream to know, is it us that's creating the problem? And then we would need to stop operation if there's found to be any type of hazard, you know, anything like that, that would come to the site. But we would take that seriously. I think I stated before that the future development of that platform or of that fill depends on it. And so we would also be motivated for that as well.
So to follow up, is there any like commitments to doing any testing currently? Or again, is this one incremental step? But I think this is our ability to have that negotiation and, you know, kind of build it in as a condition. And I just wanted to understand, you know, I haven't seen anything that states that we're going to test this once a year or until this depth. or, until maybe we have another study done, talking about the settling of the ground and kind of, how viable is it, or not viable, but how much is it impacting our groundwater? Like, where are those commitments and how is that being stipulated? As you can see, planning's recommending a denial of this. So I think that my thoughts as we continue this to another meeting, and if maybe we have that reassurance, maybe more folks could support this, knowing that there will be testing periodically and that we aren't accidentally putting bad fill into this area, because I totally believe that the underground water could be impacted very negatively if we have contaminated fill. And I know that's not what you're anticipating, but where's that reassurance that we're getting that monitoring aspect of what we've been discussing?
It's a great question, and we would be willing to commit to any type of testing that is deemed necessary. There's no problem from our end to do any type of written commitment in that sense. I would also like to call up Mr. Jason Crothy now to speak anything more. I think I'd like you to come up. I'm going to have Mr. Jason Crothy just give any other ideas that comes to his mind right now. But if it is something that does need to be more thought out and on paper, we would also be willing to do that as well.
Good evening. I'm Jason Crothy with Hydrogeology Inc., and we did the karst report for the property. Really, when it comes to karst, in development and planning, the issues arise when you don't know what's out there. So, I think they did a good proactive job getting us out there to identify what karst is out there. I'm familiar with the site from some work on I-69 as well. And really, I would just like to answer any questions that you all might have about karst at the site and, potential impacts.
Have you been involved in a fill type situation and development from the beginning to the end? And is there like certain safeguards we should be considering as we move for consideration?
I have not. The only one that I was involved with peripherally was on I-69. They filled one, but there was no testing or anything that went along with that. So I don't have any specific knowledge on that.
Right. Okay. I'm just showing my ignorance on some of this, but I would defer to our MS4 coordinator and other experts to understand what we should put in place if we're even considering this. So
okay.
I thank you for entertaining the question, but again, a lot of this operation is pretty new to me. So,
are there any additional questions? Okay.
This might be for you, Daniel. Can you explain the compaction process? You've done it on other fills too. And if I understand correctly, you don't have a use set or what you're planning on putting on top of it, but just that process and how you guys compact that fill.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing is you have to do in lifts. So you have to go through with a compactor at certain lifts, and lifts means that after a certain amount of depth placed on there, you need to make sure that that layer is compact before you go to the next layer, and that's the main process. But you would also have a geotechnical engineer on site periodically to make sure, and he can test that. He can actually do several different types. I'm not geotechnical myself, but I work with them enough to know the types of testing that they do on site, so to ensure that once you get to, say, 20, 25, 30 feet of fill, that you can be ensured that that's going to be, necessary or enough. Actually, it happens quite a bit when you remove an old building and it has a basement. And so that type of situation happens all the time, where then you would need to fill that basement in. And if they're going to put a new building in that place, then that type of operation is the same type of idea, where you're kind of making sure that's compact with engineered fill, also crushed to the right size, and making sure that then the void space between those is to a minimal.
And I asked this, I did all of this through my internship, and we did 6 inches at a time, which I can't imagine. Is there requirements on how as far as your compaction, like you mentioned 30 feet, but is there a certain level that's required?
It would depend on how dense you can get that fill. So if you don't really want big chunks in there, you want to make sure it's compactable to a place where you would be able to control it. And then you don't have to go as small as 6 inches, but probably 24 inches might be the key here.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Butler. We will turn it now to the public comment portion of the hearing. So if there are any members of the public here in the room that wish to speak in favor of this petition, please come to the podium and sign in. Seeing none, if there's anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak in favor, please raise, oh, sorry, sir, go ahead and come on forward. Please sign in and state your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Bill Hanna with Hanna Trucking, and we own a parcel next to the parcel where Milestone's proposing to get a fill and grade permit, and we're, myself and my brother own it. I talked to him today. We're more than happy to see that happen. I think that would upgrade the area, and I think it would be good for Monroe County to get that filled. And we have done work for Milestone for a long time, and they do things right. I can tell you that right now. They don't cut corners. They do, their jobs right. And I heard someone talking about contaminated nowadays, the asphalt that's milled off the roads. And like if you're on the parking lot and they dig up the blacktop only, it all goes back to the plant because it's very valuable to recycle. So, that covers the biggest thing. And then a lot of jobs, the soils can, tested too on a lot of their jobs, or most of their jobs as far as I know. We take it where they tell us to take it, but all the petroleum products go back to the asphalt plant. So, but anyway, bottom line is, we're happy to see them. I hope it gets passed. And, like I said, I think they're the company that would do it right. I don't think you have worries about cheating and putting stuff in there that shouldn't be. And we have a place down there in the bottom where it splits off, where we could put a gate right there and make sure it's closed every night, and keep people out. So, and we had a gate up for a while, and it can be put up in a day, to keep them out, where it splits to go our property, and then their property just takes off from that point. So anyway, I think it would be a good thing for Monroe County. I think at the end of the day, it might be a while, but I think it's going to be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room? Mr. Cassidy?
Good evening, Randy Cassidy, average citizen, and tend to be a little bit on the historic aspect in regards to limestone. So when we look in regards to what we see here, we have a couple things and I don't know how many other people in this room, Jerry particularly, but this is where we used to swim prior to 46 coming in. Not you. Yeah. Chris. Yeah. Long story short, when 46 came through, it filled in some of the areas that were what we would consider our historic area that from our youth we remember. But 46, which was needed in order to connect Ellettsville and our western part into what became 69, was important. So when they cut through this quarry area, they did two things. One, they left us a quarry on each side, one of which, as the county commissioners, the county council has said, has developed into a historic quarry site for our heritage. With this, that in itself will take time to develop. But this intersection has that point. Now, what we look at on this particular side is we have a quarry land which has been completely milled out. It is basically a rubble pile at this particular time. But it has, as Jerry put it, a couple of historic portions regards to what it would be the large wall, which would have been cut with a wire saw. That's where you get that large wall, which they've committed to save. It also has a couple other features of which they've committed to save. Now, when you're coming from the western part and you're taking 46 onto 37 or 69 now, we also have the consideration as they look to fill this that we pick up a safety basis Because as you come off with the large rocks and such, I know of 2 individuals that have ran off the berm unintentionally and just actually rolled down that hill. As they fill that area, that would also take care of a safety issue. Now, I am a neighbor near there as it goes down on Industrial Drive. The concern I have in this would be what Tron says. It would be, let's check the water quality and make sure everything's good. And then the truck traffic, based upon these gentlemen being in the road business, are probably not going to do a lot to diminish our road quality because they would have to repair it, and they have the expertise. One thing I was not coming here to speak at all. I just happened to come in and see this. And as I looked up Milestone, I did find one thing that I caught my eye. It was like, and this is the first thing. At Milestone Contractors, we tackle complex problems, we bet on our people, and we always do, and we do the right thing always. Now, that was just a random thing I looked up. So I was kind of surprised when I saw it because they're here, they're doing things. And this particular property that we have, it's a large site, it has historical basis. They've committed to saving it and to build something up that would have more usable area that could provide for a safer entry into it. If it's done right, and even if it takes 10 years to do, if they bring it up right, it'll be a benefit to us. And we just have to make sure, as Tron said, and our roads, that those conditions are taken care of. And I think these people are committed to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Anybody else in the room wishes to speak in favor of this petition? If not, is there anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak in favor? Not seeing any hands raised. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak against this petition? If you're in here, please come forward to the podium and sign in. You'll get 3 minutes. Not seeing anyone. Is there anyone online who wishes to speak against this petition? Please raise your virtual hand. Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of the hearing and turn back to the petitioner again. You'll get 5 minutes to speak toward anything that was mentioned tonight if you choose to do so.
I don't think I have a lot of other things unless there's questions. I just wanted to make sure everyone was understanding that our commitment to, not be in the sinkholes or in the cars is not just a commitment for this. We're adding a use to the entirety of the site, but we're only going to be filling this as a phase 1 on the east side. So I think everyone probably understands that, but we'd be committing to that for the future of this fill as well. So but the only thing that I can think of, as I already stated, that there may be impact as we need to go over that creek with that future road in that fill process. But again, we can keep that all natural and look into that, but we're not looking to fill that in at this time. That's all I'd add at this time.
Okay, thank you, sir. So bringing it back to the Plan Commission for conversation, I can start by kind of sharing my opinion since it's getting late here. I think there is a viable compromise to be had here. I think if the northern part is, kept protected and historical, and the wetlands and the stream is protected, I think, the southern part could be filled in a little bit and made into more of a commercial or industrial use that's accessible from Vernal Pike and Industrial Boulevard. So I think my opinion is I would want to see that better documented before I'd be willing to vote on it in terms of seeing the actual karsts and quarries that were going to be protected outlined on an actual map, and seeing the commitments that Mr. Butler's made tonight being added to the conditions for approval. So I would have trouble approving it tonight without seeing all that documented in detail so we knew exactly what we were approving. So I'd be in favor of denying the waiver of final hearing and coming back next month with that. But I'm curious to know others' thoughts, if anybody else has questions or comments on the Plan Commission.
I'm 100% in agreement.
Yeah, Mr. Knight right now.
And this goes to planning's recommendation, and it was quickly stated that the negative recommendation is due to the comprehensive plan. Is there any other concern outside of just the way it reconciles with our comprehensive plan that we should be considering?
negative recommendation based on the comprehensive plan was the recommendation for the plan review committee.
Okay. So I guess the staff has a position of negative recommendation. Is there any way that you could expand on that of why why it's a negative recommendation?
I think it's been somewhat outlined here tonight that there are a lot of points that the petitioner could address. We have not seen enough information of them addressing that. So if you're going to deny the waiver of final hearing tonight, I would recommend maybe requesting that the petitioner actually draft a written commitment with these commitments that they're discussing, whether it's upstream or downstream testing or field testing, or how often they'll provide geotechnical reports. They've had this information, that we've had these concerns for a little while now, and we just simply haven't seen a proposal in writing.
Okay. And I was just wondering more or less if it's like a black and white situation. But it seems like staff, if could be amenable to this if they address a lot of concerns. And I was just going to indicate Dee Owens has her hand up.
Okay. Thank you. Dee, you've had your hand up for a while. If you'd like to go next.
Thanks very much. Looking at the graphic that showed like 17 sinkholes and 5 springs and so forth, that's the kind of karst. It's the kind of place that does not need to have fill. Trone questioned the wetlands area in there, and I believe there's some of that too. I think it's just such a delicate area that is eligible to be in the National Historic Register that I would agree with staff that it should have a negative recommendation.
Thank you, Dee. Any other, Ms. Munson?
I agree with you, Mr. President, that we do need to see more information specifically stated and maps showing both the historic features and wetland features with overlays of what the project is proposing to alter. And I'd like to find an accommodation between preservation and development of this property if it can work out with a good balance.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Ullman.
I think I kind of agree with some of the comments that have already been said and brought forth about it would be nice to have actual written documents or actual documentation of some of these commitments to the environmental monitoring, I'll say, in terms of monitoring water and fill and everything. But on the same note, I do want to share that personally I'm in favor of this. I think that they clearly are showing commitment to the preservation of the history and some of the natural areas. In that same note, I'm kind of at times hesitant to say natural areas, because when you look at historical imaging and the historical maps and stuff, all this area has been disturbed. We're not looking at true natural areas. And even when I spent some time looking through some old pictures, and it looks like I would almost love to go out on site and see what this wetland looks like, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's the product of the mill refuse that's been left behind that's created some of these wetland areas. I'm not in any way suggesting that the mapping and professional work done identifying these areas was done incorrectly. That's not my comment at all. I'm just saying that I'm hesitant to use the word natural areas or wildlands or wetlands or things like that, because this whole area has already been disturbed multiple times over the course of history. And if anything, our efforts or their efforts to fill in some of this is just allowing it to be done properly and not just ad hoc and naturally. That might not be stable if it was naturally to be filled in. So.
Commissioner Thomas is next, and then Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I appreciate the commitment to clean fill, and I mean, I think the intentions are good. I'm not questioning that. But I would just ask that if we can delay this and get a very clear statement of what's planned and where, and what areas are going to be off limits for any kind of disturbance, I think it would be useful to have that. But also, I would ask that perhaps the Historic Preservation Board of Review would also review that plan and provide input on that as well for us. That I think that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Mr. Ferris.
So I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said. But I do support what Commissioner Thomas just said. I am personally very familiar with that area out there. He actually used to go out to the packing house with my grandfather when the packing house actually used to be out there. And I'm familiar with the quarries out there just like you guys are, because most of us grew up swimming out in that area. But this is an area that needs improvement. It is an absolute eyesore. So I support and I would approve moving forward on this, just not at this time. You make what we have suggested here, if you incorporate that into the plan, I would vote favorably at the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Any other comments, Mr. Ullman? Yeah.
One additional comment I forgot to mention in my earlier statement. I do want to say I really liked the statement. Personally, I like the statement that the petitioner made about not wanting to commit to a structure in a set time frame or what type of land use is going to be there. And personally, I like that because it's hard to say how long to make this fill project completed properly and adequately. I think that trying to commit them to having a land use within a set amount of time, you're asking them to commit to complete a project in a time frame that we don't know exactly how long it's going to take. And also, we don't know what this area is going to look like in 10 years. And for us and our job to be being cognizant of land use and the best and most valuable use of land to be making decisions and commitments 10 years out, I think is a little unnecessary or unright. So I really like the fact that the petitioner made that statement and isn't in favor of committing to that. So that's my only comment there.
Thank you. Any additional comments? If not,
I guess, how would we frame moving this forward? Because I feel like that is the consensus or majority of the Plan Commission right now. But asking for those commitments, are we just expressing them and expecting them to bring back? Could we ask them to bring them back? I guess, is there a way that we would want to make a motion to continue this, but ask for those commitments to be specified?
You think you would deny the request of a waiver of final hearing and then include your request to the petitioner?
Okay. I was going to leave it up to someone else to make the motion. I just wasn't sure how to do that.
if there's no more comments.
Mr. Chair, if you're ready for a motion, I'm prepared.
Yes, please.
Okay, if you would, okay. In case number PUO-23-6, this is an amendment to a planned unit ordinance. I would recommend denial of waiver of final hearing, thus allowing this petition to continue to the regularly scheduled March meeting of the Plan Commission, at which time petitioner would be requested to address all matters raised by Plan Commission and staff at this meeting tonight.
I'll second.
Can I make a point of clarification? Jerry, do you have a time frame on when they need to have the clarifications or the outline? Is it prior to the admin meeting or just by the regular session?
It would, yeah, just before the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Not administrative session. If they want to do that, that's between them and staff. But as long as it's in our packet for the next formal meeting, that's a requirement. Any other thing would be too short a timeline. It would be unprofessional to request that.
Okay, Jackie, we have a motion and a second. Could you call the roll?
Sure. It's been moved and seconded to have this be heard at the March 19th, 2024 Plan Commission meeting, which means a denial of the waiver of final hearing with a request that the petitioner bring back a written commitment draft for review in the March 19th packet submitted to staff to go out. A vote yes is a vote to hear this on March 19th, 2024. Edward Ullman?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes, yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Jackie, and thank you to the petitioner's representatives for your presentation tonight. We appreciate it. And thank you, Ann. So moving on to our next case, which is PUD-23-7, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Outpatient Clinic Development Plan, North Park B2 Infrastructure Plan Amendment 1. Ann, that's you again.
Yep. Okay, so the petition site is 4 parcels, technically 2 lots of record, totaling 14.53 acres, located in Richland and Bloomington Townships. The property owner is Logan Land Development LLC, and the petitioner is ZRB Development, in care of Mr. Daniel Butler with Bynum Faneuil and Associates. So the zoning of the petition site is North Park PUD. Just to note, this is North Park, not North Park 2. The adjacent zoning is also North Park PUD. The petition site is currently vacant and undeveloped. The adjacent uses to the petition site include a hospital and wellness center to the south and a nursing home to the east. The petitioner is proposing a PUD development plan on lots 3054 and 3098 North Lentil Drive. So both properties are platted and would be combined pending a final plat amendment that has been filed with staff. The petitioners have also filed an amendment to the North Park Area B2 infrastructure plan in order to remove 2 sidewalks from the plan. This was originally approved in 2012. So lot 3, a part of the petition site, which is that 3098, it's an image on your left. It was platted in 2015. This lot includes a 100-foot Duke Energy easement and a 10-foot pedestrian easement, which you can see highlighted in yellow. The image on the right is the image of lot 6, which is 3054 North Lentil Drive. It was platted in 2020. So quick aerial of the image. So to speak to the infrastructure plan, the petitioner is proposing to amend that 2012 infrastructure plan to remove 2 sidewalks. The first sidewalk is a sidewalk that runs parallel with State Road 46 on lots 5, 6, and 3. This sidewalk was not constructed on lot 5 when the hospital wellness use was approved in 2020, and the petitioner just currently doesn't necessarily see a need for it. The second sidewalk is with stairs, and it's located within that previously platted 10-foot pedestrian easement on lot 3. You can see that a little bit closer on Exhibit 9. I've included an illustration of the original 2012 plans that show those sidewalks. So just another view of the site currently. So these are both petition sites. Both petition sites combined. This is 2020 aerials. So the site maintains frontage along North Lentil Drive. The 2016 thoroughfare plan classifies Lentil Drive as a local road, and it's currently vacant and undeveloped. The property is mainly slopes under 15%. It does contain a regional detention pond in the northeast corner, and again, it has that 100-foot Duke aerial overhead power line easement. So the plan includes a main outpatient clinic building, a maintenance building, and 2 off-street parking lots. And you can see that in Exhibit 3. The proposed development plan overall meets the majority of the design and architectural standards laid out for the new construction in the Office State Road 46 district. Staff has included their staff review notes under Exhibit 7 for your reference. Please note that within the report and this presentation, we're really only including 2 comments that are of significance. So staff has recommended a condition of approval that all review comments be addressed before the issuance of any improvement location permit. So that covers all those more minor comments that staff had. So the architectural features of the site generally meet the ordinance with minor requested changes from staff or the architect. The design includes a cast stone masonry facade and monument white chisel with contrasting fiber cement wall panels and an espresso color. The developmental standards, they are currently meeting their step backs and exceeding them in some areas. They meet the maximum height for the building. They meet the maximum floor to area ratio, and they are meeting their parking stall requirements. The development plan was reviewed by the Drainage Board on February 1st of this year, and the Drainage Board submitted preliminary comments to the petitioner. The site drains from south to north towards a tributary of Stouts Creek. There would be modifications to the existing regional detention pond and are proposed to increase capacity. So on the screen is an image from the open space and linear plan, which does identify that that area was designated for regional detention, and that pond does already exist and is in use today. So to move on to the two staff comments of significance to bring up here. The first is a landscaped swale. So a landscaped swale measuring no less than 16 feet in width with a certain D-value density is required between every 2 parking aisles, which is every 4 rows of parking stalls. The petitioner is aware of this requirement. The next requirement of significance is an earthen berm. So under the ordinance, it states that no off-street parking areas shall be adjacent to State Road 46 or Curry Pike Hunter Valley Road unless located behind buildings, behind a landscape masonry wall, or landscaped berm. So the petitioner has provided and acknowledged that they will absolutely be doing an earthen berm. They've upgraded their plan, but they don't necessarily show the full integration of those contours. They've just shown kind of a shape and recognize that as an earthen berm. So if the design is not altered to meet the criteria, the only process forward would be an outline plan amendment to the ordinance. Now, that being said, this development plan can be approved if all ordinances are followed. At this time, staff believes that the petitioner is able to provide revisions that can meet all requirements. We've spoken with them. They believe that they have the capacity and ability to meet both of these, the earthen berm and the parking swale. Planning staff and the petitioner have met and spoken regarding a trigger within the PUD ordinance. So there is a trigger for a pedestrian overpass or underpass in this area that should be constructed when it meets 50%, let's see, 50% of the acreage of the State Road 46 office use area. So this would be overpass, underpass along, that would be a multi-use trail connecting to other areas zoned North Park across State Road 46. Currently, this use area, not just the petition site, but the use area, 53.7 acres, does not quite meet the 50% threshold. That being said, planning staff, the petitioner, and the property owner, we have met and spoke regarding this trail connection. The property owner and the petitioner have expressed interest in reevaluating the remaining road and trail connections required under the North Park PUD. They're interested in discussing this with planning and Parks and Recreation and other departments that are deemed important to possibly bring forward a possible outline plan amendment. So if pursued, this would come before Planning Commission and County Commissioners at a future date. And just as an illustration, this is that 2012 infrastructure plan where we can see reference to this possible future connection of an overpass underpass, which at that time was designed as an underpass. So staff does recommend recommends approval of the North Park proposed development plan with the following conditions. That number one, the final plat amendment, SFP 24-2, is recorded by the time of the land use certification application. That is the plat that combines these lots and removes the platted 10-foot easement. Number two, that all outstanding review comments are completed to the satisfaction of county staff before the issuance of improvement location permits. And that staff also recommends forwarding approval of the North Park B2 Infrastructure Plan Amendment 1 with the following condition: that the final plat amendment SFP 24-2 is recorded by the time of land use certification application. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Pitzer?
Have you scheduled the conversation on the overpass, underpass to the trail?
We requested an exhibit that would help us see what's been built and what hasn't been built regarding the multi-use path, the sidewalks, and we actually received that exhibit by email today. And we've already discussed having this meeting with Parks.
Okay, good. That is a very important issue that needs to be addressed now. So I'm glad that that was in there. I honestly had totally forgotten about that. It's been so long ago that we actually waded through North Park and all that. So I was very encouraged that petitioner and staff both picked that up, and I look forward to that conversation.
Are there any other questions for Ann? Okay, thank you, Ann. We will turn now to the petitioner. Mr. Butler, you're back. You get 15 more minutes.
I'm back. Do I have to re-sign in? Looks like I'm good. All right. Again, I'm Daniel. I'm with Bynum Fanning Associates, and with me tonight is Zach Burns. He's with ZRB Development. He helps the VA hospital, the VA clinic, get and where they need to be. So he's with me if you have any question representing ownership tonight. I don't think I'll add a lot. I think Ann did a great job kind of going through everything. We've put a lot of work into this to get it where it is today. We think it's a great use for considering the other types of, I guess, commercial uses that are in this area, and they're all really medical. So this is, we think it's a great spot for it. I think ZRB did their homework, picked a great spot for it, and we're just kind of crossing all the T's now. Dotting all the I's. The only thing I will add that I have not told Ann yet, and if this is amenable to planning staff, we don't want to do an earthen berm on that side. We want to continue our wall. Because the only reason I want to make sure everyone understands that we are doing a wall along that whole face of State Road 46, and that was something that got put in the ordinance to shield headlights from going out into the highway. And so we're going to continue a wall. We think it'll look better than changing from a wall to a berm. And so that's our only change, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Any questions for Mr. Butler while he's still at the podium? Doesn't look like it. Thank you. So we will turn now to the public comment portion of this petition. So if there's anybody in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this, you can come forward, sign in, Mr. Cassidy. You get 3 more minutes.
To be perfectly honest, I had no intention of coming up and speaking. I just happened to be in a position where I see things that I wasn't expecting and is just here. I'm the father of a disabled American veteran, and she has to go to the VA clinic in Indianapolis. And having this VA clinic here in our community to help out our veterans that have served our country is extremely important. And putting it in an accessible area that's close and easy to get to will take a tremendous amount of strain off those veterans that have served our country. So I would encourage you to, vote to move this project forward so that the services that the VA provides can be given to the people of our the residents of our community. Thank you.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Anybody else that wishes to come forward and speak in favor of this petition? Jackie, are we having Teams issues? Is that you uninstalling Teams?
I still have it going.
Okay.
You got Julie with her hand raised too.
Okay. The screen we're seeing in front of us has somebody tried to uninstall Teams. That's not you, Jackie, you're in? Okay. It looks, Tron's still got it up, so I think we're in good shape. I think Commissioner Thomas, you have your hand raised. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else in the room that wishes to come forward. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak in favor of this petition, if you can still hear us? If not, is there anybody in the room that wishes to speak against this petition?
I do see there is one person online.
Okay, thank you,
Mr.
Ann.
Clark Greiner.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Greiner.
My name's Clark Greiner. I'm with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. We support the VA and getting out there and getting a clinic built for them, we think is very important. We agree with Mr. Cassidy and Daniel with regards to the use and location of that. I think it's outstanding for that, as well as the other uses around that property. So we support this initiative and would love to see a positive vote to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak in favor or against this petition? Not seeing anyone. Mr. Butler, you have 5 more minutes if you'd like to come forward and speak to any of the comments that have been made. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the Plan Commission at this point for any questions or comments or discussion. Yeah, Mr. Enright Randolph.
The question was, I guess, the new proposal of having the wall versus the berm, and that's not for you, Mr. Butler, but to planning, does that change anything as far as your recommendations or concerns? And then also if we have our MS4 coordinator, I was wondering if that changes anything on their end either, since this is kind of a new thing.
I'm sure that they can engineer it. If Mr. Butler is confident that they can make that work, that's fine. We can easily take development plan approval, and if for some reason we can't get to the point where the ordinance is not being met, that's when they would consider an outline plan amendment. So maybe Kelsey can speak to possibly the effects of that regional drainage, but I believe we'd probably want to just see a next draft.
Okay, and yes, if Ms. Fatonia wanted to speak to it, that would be fine too. I just wanted to make sure that you were comfortable with that proposed change that he suggested. So.
Hi, John. This is Kelsey. I think that's something detailed I can look at with a more detailed plan submittal. I see no issues either way. If it's, we'll work through the orientation of that and the pond and everything. I see no issues.
Okay. Thank you, Kelsey. Any other comments, questions, discussion? If
You
not,
ready for a motion?
Go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. In case number PUD-23-7, this is a development plan for a VA outpatient clinic to be located at 3054 and 3098 North Lentil Drive, located in the North Park PUD in Bloomington and Richland Townships. In accordance with staff recommendation, I can recommend approval of the request and waiver of the final hearing based on the findings of facts and subject to the following conditions. 1, SFP-24-2 is recorded by the time of land use certification application. 2, all outstanding review comments are completed to the satisfaction of county staff before the issuance of any improvement location permit. And further, that SFP-24-2 is duly recorded by the time of the land use certification application. No, I'm sorry, that's a repeat. So that's my motion in full.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you call the roll?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve PUD-23-7, which is the Department of Veterans Affairs Outpatient Clinic Development Plan and the North Park B2 Infrastructure Plan Amendment 1. This includes a waiver of final hearing as well as 2 conditions stated in the staff report that SFP-24-2 is recorded by the time of land use certification application, and 2, all outstanding review comments are completed to the satisfaction of county staff before the issuance of any improvement location permit. A vote yes is a vote to approve the development plan, infrastructure plan, waiver of final hearing with the conditions. Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved, 8-0.
Thank you, Jackie. Mr. Schilling, we are almost at 9 o'clock. If I'm correct, I believe we need a motion to continue the meeting. Is that correct?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the meeting to conclude our business in our last item, which would be petition REZ-23-7.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you call the roll?
Thank you. All right, it's been moved and seconded to allow for the meeting to continue. A vote in favor is to proceed with the last item on the agenda, REZ-23-7. So a vote yes is to hear the next petition. Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. So we will move on to case REZ-23-7, the Taylor rezone from RE1 to light industrial. Drew?
Thank you. All right, this is located at 6610 West State Road 48. It is a rezone request to rezone the property from estate residential to light industrial. Property is about 9.08 acres. It's in Van Buren Township. It's unplatted, and the comprehensive plan has it designated as the Monroe County Urbanizing Area Rural Transition. So the petitioner is seeking to rezone this property from RE1 to light industrial with the purpose of establishing a business or industrial center to incorporate both the uses of a general contractor and heavy machinery sales. Should the rezone be approved by the County Board of Commissioners, the petitioner intends to file a commercial site plan to be reviewed administratively by the Planning Department. If denied, the property would remain zoned Estate Residential 1, where the use of general contractor and heavy machinery sales is not permitted. Having both those uses constitutes a business or industrial center, hence the classification that's stated in the report and on the screen. This came about through a use determination process with the petitioner, stating that their project was to essentially be a general contractor as well as selling or renting machinery attachments. And the best definitions and the use categories for those particular uses were general contractor and heavy machinery sales that you see on the screen. Business or industrial center is permitted in the light industrial zone. So that would be a use that could be accommodated through the rezone process. Here's the location map. You can see this in Van Buren Township, Richland Township to the north. It's along West State Road 48. That hatching that you see there is the airport noise sensitivity area. And that is an area that it's not an overlay. It's just an informational area. It follows the flight patterns or flight paths for the Monroe County Airport. And it is more or less an area where the Monroe County Airport Director has stated that they wish to discourage the development of residences in those areas. Here on the screen, I have the definitions for the two zoning districts in the conversation, the State Residential 1 District, which is the current, and the Light Industrial District, which is the proposed. We can come back to these if necessary. Here's the current zoning map. As you'll see, RE1 over to the east, or excuse me, to the west. We have mineral extraction to the north, as well as agricultural rural reserve districts to the north and northeast. The airport to the zone to the south, and then RE 2.5 to the southwest. There's a small general business zone to the northeast of the property site, adjacent across North Ord Road. Here we have the comprehensive plan. Rural transition is defined as portions of the urbanizing area primarily to the east and south that are not suitable for intensive development due to access, infrastructure, and environmental constraints. Here we have the site conditions. There are a number of karst features on the site due to the contour lines that you can see there on the screen. The MS4 coordinator, Kelsey Thetonia, provided this comment you see at the bottom of the screen, stating that the property is located within the Cave Creek critical watershed, and that development of this site will require a drainage plan that complies with Monroe County Code Chapter 761 and the critical watershed release rates. Additional water quality treatment measures can be required based on the proposed use, and a karst report should also be submitted during the site plan review. Here I have some aerial imagery of the site. You'll note that it's fairly wooded at the time, and that there is an existing residential structure, which I do believe is vacant. The property owner and petitioner can probably speak to the details of that. Here I have a larger view of the area. You can see the mineral extraction up to the north and northwest, and then again the airport to the southeast area. Okay, here I have the letter to the Plan Commission from the petitioner, which is Dusty Taylor, owner of Taycon Taylor Construction and Excavating, LLC, as well as a consent letter from the current property owner, which is Bryan Rental Incorporated. These two items are included in the packet. And the next few slides here are conceptual site plans provided by the petitioner that indicates their proposed use of the site, and their proposed phasing as well. So you can see here, phase one includes a gravel parking lot as well as gates and fencing in the blue, and then a future building site in phase two off to the west area. And then it's the same site plan, conceptual site plan with just different backgrounds. Here we have one that shows contour lines. Here one shows buildable area. I also included the use tables for the RE1 district that's on the screen. So you'll note that a very limited amount of uses available in this district. The P stands for permitted and the C stands for conditional. And here I have the use table for the light industrial zoning district. So many more uses available in this district. Again, the P stands for permitted and the C or CU stands for conditional. The column that has the I in italics, that stands for the associated intensity of that particular use. So H stands for high, an M stands for medium, and an L stands for low. Okay, so this did go to the Plan Review Committee, and their main concerns were the karst features of the site. And the planning staff recommendation for this one is a positive recommendation based on the findings of fact and subject to the following conditions of approval. And that is number one, the petitioner submit a karst report for review by the MS4 coordinator prior to site plan approval. I will now take any questions.
Any questions for Drew? I don't see any. Thank you, Drew. So we will turn now to the petitioner. If you'd like to come forward, you'll have 15 minutes to speak on behalf of your petition. If you could sign in and state your name.
Hi, I'm Dusty Taylor. I own Take On Taylor Construction and Excavation. I appreciate you guys letting us go a little bit longer to get this last little meeting in here. I'll try to make it quick and short. I'm a third generation excavator. All my family has originated from the west side of the airport out there. I've grown up there all my life. I've drove past this property ever since I was born. It has nothing but overgrown. It's become really ugly. You've got the airport on one side, you got the miners, the Rogers Group crusher that connects to the other side of it. I think it would be a great potential site for me to have my excavating business, where I have easy access to the highway, where you've already got heavy traffic coming out there for the crusher. So the road should substantially withstand what I'm trying to do, which is nothing more than a 5-6 man operation of excavation company that we just mainly work in locally in Bloomington, Monroe, and the surrounding counties. I would love to get it zoned so I can legally run my business there and provide more services and have easier access to provide everybody here locally with a better business. So I have signings from 90% of the surrounding neighbors where I have went and spoke to them about what I plan to do. I have added another building site that one or the other would be a potential site because there's just so limited area on there for me to build. It mainly would be a shop for me to work on my equipment on. We try to, in the winter times, whenever excavation kind of slows down, we do snow removal. Well, snow removal, we don't get much of that around here anymore, just in little bits and spurts. So, in the winter, I try to keep all my guys working. I do not like laying people off because they got families at home. They got to feed and support too. So I'll buy a piece of equipment. We'll repair it, fix it up, sell it to make money to keep everybody's wages going and keeping everything go if things get slow in the winter. We do sell skid steer attachments. It's minimal, it's small, not big site stuff. Couple pieces sitting out there for sale. I think it's got good road frontage for that. All the neighbors are in favor. They know what I want to do. Nobody has opposed. I've talked to the Rogers Group down in Nashville, Tennessee, from the general manager. I've talked to the airport. I've talked to A+ Performance or A+ Trucking, which is right up the road, which is heavy industrial, which is zoned, which you didn't quite get to see that on that zoning map. It was just to the other side of that, the business one. But that's what I plan to do, and I appreciate you guys for staying late and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any questions for Mr. Taylor while he's still at the podium?
Just a quick one, because there's a lot of support here. And I'm just looking at the neighbor just immediately to your south, Wyatt Southern.
Yep.
Is one of these support from him?
No, I went to him twice now, and I have not gotten contact with him. I know him. I've grew up all my life because he actually lives on Holland Hill Lane. He actually rents this to his daughter. He owns the property, but I've been to his house back Holland Hill Lane, and I have been yet to raise him twice that I've tried to attempt to reach him.
Well, I'll just commend you on your effort of, reaching out to your neighbors and, getting their support or just having a conversation with them. So, I mean, it's still relevant. I was just kind of curious, so I didn't have to pare through all these. And obviously, you put your notice that you're here, and if they wanted to come and remonstrate, they had their opportunity. So, thank you for answering that question.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Taylor while he's at the podium? Yeah, Ms. Munson.
I'm not clear on where you plan to put your shop in the Phase 1 area.
So there are 2 black square buildings that are in the blue buildable. If you go to the one where it has the buildable areas, where it's blue, there are 2 potential. Okay, so that it doesn't show it on that picture. It shows it on the packet. We drew it. It's right behind the existing house. I do apologize.
Thank you.
The packet we added that later as a secondary potential building site because it's all in the blue buildable area.
And there it is. Okay.
Right there behind the house.
Thank you. Got it.
Also, we plan to work around all of the karst features, stay away from them, as much as needed. And obviously, if we get the zoning, then next we will work on getting an approved site plan when taking everything in consideration of all the karsted features that are on that property.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
I have one additional question, and I think it's because it was referred to that this is a critical drainage area, correct? And that means we have more strenuous release rates. I'm not sure if the waiver of second hearing was asked. Was that asked? So that means it might be entertained. Right now, that's a commitment we're asking people to meet as we're rewriting our ordinances. And I was just curious if Kelsey Fatoni wanted to speak to that and potentially commit to having that more strenuous release rate, as we've been asking for developers to do and commit to in our critical drainage areas. And, I'm not sure, Kelsey, if you would want to expand on that.
Hi, Tron. Yeah, sure. So I would require a drainage plan and drainage report for development of this site, like any other site plan review. And because of its location in the Cave Creek watershed, we ask that we have additional storage on site for runoff that's created by new impervious surfaces. We can discuss this at the drainage board once we get a site plan in on the feasibility of meeting the critical watershed release rates, or what we can do with the drainage on the site to treat the runoff prior to entering sinkholes. So.
And since I was asking the question, let me clarify my question. It sounds like we can address that at a separate meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. It's a long day. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Taylor? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We will turn now to public comment portion of this petition. So if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this petition, please come forward.
Give them a half a minute. We should start charging words.
Again, gentlemen, the basis I'm looking at in here, I understand the area. We know it's on the runoff of the airport. It's in the noise area. I will speak on behalf of Dusty Taylor and his commitment to doing quality work. That is the one thing that Mr. Taylor, I've been in the construction industry majority of my life, and as a young man coming up here, he does exceptional work and cares, and he's part of our community. In this particular area, if you look at it, while we have karst features in the Cave Creek drainage area is extremely important. The one thing we are looking at is an owner who is going to own the property. He's going to be there, and he happens to have the expertise to perform and make sure that these drainage areas are taken care of and maintained. So from standpoint of the individual, what he's doing, the area it is, based on the airport, the noise, the quarry, it looks like something that would be beneficial and help a small businessman to help keep our local community growing. So I appreciate it and would support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Is there anybody else in the room that wishes to speak in favor? If you could come forward and sign in and state your name.
Mine will be less than a minute. My name's Dave Kamen. Let me get it written down here. You don't need my address and everything, do you? Okay. I just wanted to say I've never had property rezoned in the county. It's my first experience, and I like these guys here. I liked working with Drew. He was very straightforward. And, you know, if Chris keeps in touch more, Mr. Schilling keeps in touch more, I'd appreciate that because they've been delinquent on that. But other than that, it's a pretty cool process here, and I like you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we got another Cayman. I'm Eric Cayman. It's good to see you guys. Drew, he's been a pleasure to work with, and thank you guys for hearing us. I just want to take 1 second. I mean, I think one big feature, Dusty actually brought this up. I can't even take credit for it. On the second page of the photos of the site, there is what you see is the right turn for Ord Road and State Road 48 here. And I think, you know, Dusty made a good point. He says, you know, if we take out these trees on the corner here, you would have greater visibility for traffic coming east. And, you know, I think safety has got to be a concern here at some level. And I just took this picture yesterday. So that's one thing. And I think the other thing is it's not a good looking house, and it's just not a very good area for residential use. We do residential, commercial, and I'm not going to act like we're the biggest experts in the room, but you know, based on what we've been seeing in the market, people don't really want to live across from the airport. It's busy, it's loud, and you know, Dusty's going to make a really good project out of this, and I think it's something that, you know, is not only great for the community, but, you know, great for his business and kind of great for the neighbors, as you've seen. So, you know, we really appreciate all of your support, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? If not, is there anybody on Teams that wishes to speak in favor of it? Please raise your virtual hand. Mr. Greiner? Mr. Greiner, if you wish to speak in favor of this, please unmute.
It's not in there. Well, I don't think. And maybe it was.
Is tech services able to help Mr. Greiner get unmuted?
I just made it so he can allow the mic. So can you speak, Clark?
Yes, yes, I can. It just became unmuted for me. Thank you very much. My name's Clark Greiner. I'm with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. I certainly think this is a sensible rezone request for the land use going from RE1 to light industrial. I think it's also a very good business request because we can keep Mr. Taylor in our community. And I think that site right there is a perfect site for the type of use that he's talking about for his equipment. So, and again, I think the surrounding businesses there, it's a sensible opportunity for that to work well. And I do agree with the safety side of it. And I also support the watershed idea, making sure that we pay close attention to that, and that can be dealt with in another meeting. But I certainly support it. I think it's a great idea, and I look forward to supporting this in any way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else online that wishes to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none, we will move now to anyone here in the room who may wish to speak against this petition. So if there's anyone here that wishes to speak against it, please come forward to the podium and sign in. Seeing nobody, we'll turn to Teams. Is there anybody on Teams that wishes to speak against this petition? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this this agenda item. And Mr. Taylor, you get 5 more minutes if you'd like to come forward and speak to anything that's been mentioned during remonstrance tonight.
I don't think I got a whole lot more. I appreciate it. If you guys have any other questions, I mean, I've talked to the neighbors. I think I've done about everything here that I can do that you asked. So thank you.
Thank you. So we will turn now to the Plan Commission. Does the Plan Commission have any questions, comments, motions?
I'm ready for a motion if you are, Mr. President.
I'm not seeing any comments, so go ahead.
In case.
Mr. Thomas has.
Sorry, Commissioner Thomas, I didn't see you online.
That's okay. There is a long list of potential uses for this property if we rezone this to LI, and I totally agree. This really doesn't belong in housing anymore. This really is a commercial property. And a lot of these uses listed here wouldn't even fit. But I just wanted to verify with Ms. Thetonia that there's nothing on here that causes her concern regarding the watershed that wouldn't already be addressed. Thank you.
Hi, Julie. Yeah, any site plan that's proposed, I'm going to look at really closely for potential water quality concerns and have the ability through my ordinance to require additional water quality measures for a site, and the Drainage Board will weigh in on those when we receive a site plan. Of course, with industrial usage, there's probably going to be some request for looking at potential pollutants on the site in certain hotspots in the area. So yeah, we'll be looking at it closely.
Great. Thank you so much. That's my only concern. Thanks.
Thank you both. Any other questions or comments before Mr. Pittsford makes a motion? Okay, seeing none, go ahead.
All right, case REZ-23-7. This is a request for a zoning map amendment from RE1 to LI. Property is located at 6610 West State Road 48 in Van Buren Township and consists of 9.08 plus or minus acres. And as noted, is currently zoned RE1. Based on the findings of fact and the recommendation of the planning staff, I move that the Plan Commission send this forward with a waiver of final request. With a waiver of final request, I recommend that the Plan Commission move this forward with a favorable recommendation for consideration by the Plan Commission, based again on the findings of fact and subject to the following condition: that the petitioner submit a karst report for review by the MS4 coordinator prior to site plan approval. That is my motion in full.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners, including a waiver of final hearing and the condition as stated in the staff report that the petitioner submit a karst report for review by the MS4 coordinator prior to site plan approval. A vote yes is a vote to send the favorable recommendation, waiver, and condition to the commissioners. Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes, with a quick comment. Thanks for your patience for us getting through the first part of the agenda until we got to you. And thanks everyone else for your patience for staying throughout the night. I vote yes.
Scott Ferris,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Cheryl Munson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved or sends a favorable recommendation by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. And again, thank you, Mr. Taylor, for spending the evening with us and being patient. So that takes us to our reports section of the agenda. Do we have any plan director or legal reports tonight?
I'll just report that we have been following House Bill 1108, which is the bill that is in regards to allowing development on slopes up to 25%. It did pass through its first reading of the Senate, and we're expecting it to go to a second reading and proceed. If it does pass and it becomes effective probably this summer, We'll just need to work to do the necessary text amendments to make sure our ordinance is in line with the state code.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie. If there's nothing else, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice job.